We are here. It's been a short break, and we haven't been away very long, but it feels like forever. But it's that time of the year where we get back into qualifiers, where we start a new season. We have competition in a new expansion. There's a lot of exciting things that are happening, but this is a Starforged Legends season of the NGE Shadowverse Open. Season number 3. We've gone through 2 before, and what's important here is we found out who the champions of Wonderland Dreams are. And now we're going to find out who the champions of Starforged Legends are. And there's a lot more that's going to be happening this season. I'm Rainy, your host. And of course, joining me is going to be Exodium and Aya Senpai. Did you change your Twitter?
I did. I did.
He's trying to mess everybody up.
I feel like I've been betrayed.
Constant. I gotta keep you guys on your toes, man. I'm glad you noticed.
I was about to say at Shadow Nexus Podcast. Oh God, you sneaky. You're sneaky.
I am.
I think it's your revenge for after your terrible loss to having Forestcraft win.
Our plans this season were literally just to confuse you as much as possible at the desk. So every show expects something.
I'm surprised that you guys didn't think I was confused enough already. But hey, to make sure the viewers aren't confused, let's take a look at the season format. It's going to be a little different from season 2 because there's a lot more exciting things happening. We're in the qualifier stages, so weeks 1 to 3 is going to be qualifiers. We're going to have 3 of them per region. And it's going to be open registration. Everybody can come to participate as long as you have 3 decks that you want to list and field. You can play in the qualifiers. Doesn't matter what rank or skill level you are at. It's going to be a double elimination bracket, best of 3 deck, 1 ban. And the top 2 players will advance to the Starforged Legends season. That goes from October 7th to October 22nd. What's super important and very exciting is the Contenders Cup is the big new thing here in the season format. That's the top 12 from North America and then the top 12 from Europe. They're kind of separate from each other, very regional here, and they're going to be in a double elimination bracket playing out a best of 3 deck 1 ban format, and the top 3 players from each region will qualify for the Shadowverse World Grand Prix in Tokyo. So that's how that is going to be decided. So these players who are qualifying into the Starforged Legends season will then play in the Contenders Cup tournament in week number 4. That's October 28th and October 29th. And those will be the players who will move on to the World Grand Prix. And then, of course, we play out the rest of the season, the Invitational and the Regional Finals. So, very exciting stuff. We're going to be helping that World Grand Prix find who the North American and European representatives are going to be. And then they're going to have to practice and develop their skills and their deck lists and their knowledge to defeat those from other territories.
I can't wait. This is like the most exciting thing that's happened in Shadowverse so far. I cannot wait for it.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree.
I just want to see what that handshake is going to be like when all the different territories and regions meet up and then they beat each other up in Shadowverse. That's going to be really fun to watch. But that's a little down the road. We're still in the qualifier stages, so we're going to see some new faces, and these players will be prized out for their hard work here. So let's take a look at what is up for offer. First place will get 30,000 vials and qualification into the Invitationals, as we've mentioned. Second place, also qualification into the Invitationals, and then 10,000 vials. Third, fourth is 4,000. Fifth through 8th is 3,500, and 9th through 16th is 1,500. And then the Invitationals itself, the top 6 will move on to the regional finals, and then the 4th place from each group gets 250 for their trouble. And then all competitors will earn that flair. And then the regional finals itself, $6,500 for first place, $3,000 for second, $2,500 for third, $1,500 for fourth, and then fifth and sixth get $950. So the NGE Shadowverse Open Starforged Legends Grand Champion Flair also given to the first place winner. So there's a lot of stuff happening. There's the actual season itself where you get cash prizes, and then you could win it big if you win in the Contenders Cup, go to the World Grand Prix and win there. Woo! And then you win the season? What? That's so much money. I could retire. I could retire.
Well, I don't know about that.
I could not retire.
Retire, move to Hawaii, live your whole life. Yeah, you'd be great. You'd be set.
If I keep my current standard of living, like the cardboard box on the side of the street, I think I could retire.
I'm pretty sure
Okay,
you live at
that's
the
fair.
desk, right? So as long as you stay at the desk, the rest of your life you'll be fine.
I only get to live at this desk for as long as I'm on the show.
Oh,
The
okay.
instant I'm off the show, they just kick me out of here. So that's how I'm trying to make rent, you know. This is why I'm on the show. But we don't need to talk too much about my living situation. But if you want to find out what people are talking about in Shadowverse and get more information about all these things that we're mentioning, like Season 3, the World Grand Prix, and more, make sure you go to Twitter at Shadowverse Game is where you'll get all your Shadowverse updates, news, also a lot of community posts, retweets, and stuff like that. So if you just kind of want to find out and read up on Shadowverse stuff, that's a good place to go. And a lot of us, you know, like Shadow Nexus and Mana Surge, we all post on Twitter, so just being on Twitter is a great thing. You can get a lot of information about Shadowverse there, so definitely recommend you make an account if you don't have one, and if you do, start following these people on Twitter because they always talk about stuff like Prime Dragon Keeper and
And community events. Don't forget about community events. Not just the big
Yes,
ones, but
definitely.
there's tournaments for everybody.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a few of them cropping up. You know, HSK has started running a few stuff. We've had a bunch of release events from Shadow Nexus as well, and of course a lot of cool, interesting tournaments with alternative rules. So there's definitely a lot to participate in. But we're here now in the qualifiers. This is kind of the competitive stage now. To set kind of some of the context, right? We've seen a lot of these players from Season 2 for a long while. You know, we spent months with them in the round robin, seeing them compete against every single combination of matchup that we could. And we really saw them grow over that period of time. But now,
Ton.
we're only going to see new faces and those, of course, who were on the bottom end of that round robin. People have been playing, people have been working hard, and I suppose you guys would probably be most knowledgeable at Shadow Nexus itself, but let's think about some of these new faces. Who do you think is the most missed player in Season 2 that could make a big run in Season 3? Is there any player off the top of your minds? And if not, you know, what do you think is going to happen here? Let's start with Exodian.
Sure. On the EU side of things, I really want to see Essia come back. I feel like he was the one person that showed that he has what it takes. He just needs more experience. So I really want to see him come back, see what he can do. He's got a lot of good team members to work with, so I think I'd like to see him a lot as far as the EU region is concerned.
Any special note from you, Aya?
This is a little later, but I want to say Fatina. Like,
Yes.
we saw him like just on the edge of the round robin, and then he just came back and did so well. I want to see him
Yep.
come back this season, and I want to see him put in that work.
All right, well, there you guys have it. And of course, I'm looking forward to the new blood that's going to be entering into the tournament and the competition and who's going to be qualified. But looks like our first game is starting, so let's jump right into it. And we are in the upper semis, and so I believe this matchup is going to be Best Marmot versus Unner. So we're already a little bit familiar with Best Marmot, but I think Unner is a slightly new name. I'm not too familiar with it, but there we have the decks listed on screen for you guys. And let's talk a little bit about the meta, guys, to kick us off. Exodium, how do you think Starforged Legends has been playing out, and what are we going to see in this particular matchup here?
Sure. So, I mean, we're still early in development, so a lot of aggro decks as normal at the beginning of the season. I know we've talked a lot about that. But aggro Sword, as you can see, and I'll actually let Aya talk a little bit more about this because he's been playing Sword more than me. But Aya, talk to everybody about Sword and why it's so good right now.
All right, well, one of the reasons that Sword is so good is that it has so much storm. Okay, as we see, there's the first turn Perseus in the hand of Best Marmot. He has the Centaur Vanguard that gives it storm. So starting from turn 2 and going up the curve, he has storm cards in his hand ready to unload on his opponent. So that's one of the
Vanguard,
major.
Novice Trooper, Julia,
Yeah.
Albert, like every single card, even his opponent's hand right now, Unner over there with his Council of Card Knights. There's just so many storm cards. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good, man. But I wanted to say that since Best Marmot is on the on the draw, he's gonna want to play more of a controlling game. He's gonna want to try to keep Unner's board low. He's gonna want to try to fit in the damage that he can, while trying to control the board. But as we see, Unner is just, you know what, man, your face, bro.
That's right. And he's also got the Council of Card Knights to back up the early aggro. So even if Best Marmot wants to try to control the board, Council of Card Knights kind of does it better than any of the cards that Marmot has access to at the moment. So he's going to have to fight through quite a lot here. But even saying that, Marmot does have a ton of high-value cards in hand, so he could eke out a lot of damage from what he's got.
Oh, he's got 2 Juliets, he's got a Centaur Vanguard, and an Albert. So he has all the storm he could need, you know. And Unner playing an Ephemera here, of course this sets up for later turns. Him playing an Ephemera here is not going to stop Best Marmot from going, hey man,
Ooh,
I'm hitting you in the
and
face.
that freshly minted Vanguard for the double Vanguard turn here.
Yeah.
From no damage to a ton of damage in like no seconds flat. Let's go.
Yeah, he materialized a boat out of nowhere and is hitting Unner in the face. Okay.
That's right. You took a turn off to play Ephemera. Here we go, boys.
Right.
By the way, Aya, what is a marmot? Okay, do you know what a marmot is? Can you tell me what this is? No idea what a marmot is. I know it's like a rodent or like a prairie dog type of thing, right? It's gotta be. That's what it sounds like.
Well, you know what,
I don't
man?
know.
I don't have a clue. But I mean, honestly, I kind of want to know what an Unner is too. But
Right. Right. Perfect.
Okay.
So, one quick note I want to make about Sword as well. Princess Juliet, while also just being a really great 3-play point 2/2 with Storm, 2 factors about that card that make it even better. One, it's got Commander keyword on it, meaning it also triggers your Centaur Vanguards and other things like that. And 2, if you play something that a lot of the Sword decks are playing right now, called Round Table Assembly, you can actually play that for 5. It's a spell, and it puts 2 commanders into play that costs 3. And if you just play Juliets, or you run some combination of Juliets plus the new commander that came out, Mars, then you just get a ton of free damage, where otherwise you couldn't do that much on turn 5. It can deal with FMR in play up to 8 damage with an Evo point, so these Sword decks can spike really hard.
yeah, that's one of the things that's really scary about Sword. Doesn't really matter what deck you're playing. They get just the right order of cards and this and other. You're in a lot of trouble.
Right.
A lot of trouble.
Absolutely. But it looks like Marmot and Unner chose to go with the Council of Card Knights instead of Round Table Assembly for more board positive plays, which makes sense to me. Council of Card Knights is not going anywhere. It's a great card.
Well, I'm
And as
currently in my list, I'm running 1 round table and 2 council, so kind of mixed it up a little bit.
Nice little mix. Yeah, keep your opponent guessing, especially in formats like this. I mean, them not knowing what you have to play on turn 5 when you have a bevy of options between Albert and those 2 cards, it just makes playing around things very hard. And as we can see, Marmot, while being on the draw and being to a slower start, has this game right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, he's been controlling the game since the beginning. He's been trading when he needs to, taking damage when he can. He's, as we can see, he actually went second, but is ahead on life. And he was ahead on board.
And now we get to see basically double Juliets from Unner, followed by double Juliets from Marmot. This is the crazy amount of things that you can do with this deck. It's insane. And Unner going for the trades here. He knows he's at low life.
Should have been quicker.
So yeah, that's a scary number.
Yes, it is. 10 against Sword. We all know what Albert can do, folks. We all know.
Albert is still a card.
Yes, it is. Oh, but the fact that we didn't even talk about, Juliet's cost gets reduced when you play another commander. So, yeah, he could actually, Marmot can play every single card in his hand this turn.
Yeah, and he can do up to 4 damage if he wants, or he could even do more than that. He can do 6 if he wants to Evo, but I don't think so. Again, I think he should stick to the game plan, which he is, of just trading, getting value. Like, currently, Unner has very little options to deal with this right now. He has none. Like, really,
He's gonna need to draw a council or something.
No, that's not
definitely not it. Perseus, great turn 1 drop, not so great draw on turn 8.
It does give the Centaur Vanguard Storm, but again, he's just going to be using it to trade, and it doesn't matter because we can see Best Marmot he has this game pretty well locked up right here with the board that he has.
I mean, even if Unner takes over the board back right now, we're still looking at Marmot here with 17 health. He's got plenty of draw phases to get that last 4 points of damage in.
Yeah, he does.
That being said, with the Juliet probably remaining in play.
You can get this.
Well, he could also draw Ephemera as well. That would end the game too. So if he draws his own, okay, maybe not. Nah, he traded his own.
Okay, so he did the better
Okay.
trade there. So left 1 damage
Okay.
in play. 5 damage left. Ooh, baby. The battle of the 1-drops off the top.
Well, unfortunately, Unner is stuck in the position where he's forced to trade, like for the remainder of the game.
He basically just has to outvalue with the cards off the top. Basically every single turn. If he falls behind 1 turn, he's just gonna fall over.
Yep.
Ooh. That's a spicy one.
That's not what, you hate to see that type of thing happen, man. You never want to see your opponent top deck or draw a Council of Card Knights. You never want to see
Especially in
that.
this situation, yeah. Off the top, like board to board, yeah.
Now, sitting here with your 1/1s, you got your Perseus, that's a 3/1 with a board of 1/3s. It just feels really bad.
Feels really bad. That's gonna have to run into the ward. The 1/1 can pick off the 1/1. There's still 2 damage left in play. Ooh. More 1-drops for Unner.
Yeah, he's gonna have to trade into the ward and then trade into the 1/1 to stay alive, man.
Yep, he's gonna need to draw an Albert or something of the sort off the top, even to. Oh, nope.
Never mind.
No more time.
Nope. Hey, we saw
Prairie
an
Dog
aggro
takes
sword
the first game.
we saw a aggro sword game go to turn 10.
That's right.
we saw it.
Mostly because they have to like trade while dealing damage, right? It has if they were playing a different matchup where they could just go all face and didn't have to worry about the damage on the rebound, you probably wouldn't have seen that game go as long.
Well, I really liked the way Best Mormon played that game out. He played it exactly the way he should have. He controlled the board, he outvalued Unner, and he won the match.
One thing I will say about this set, and I know you love to hear this, Forest has made a huge comeback. You'll see Forest in a lot of players' lineups because it's actually a good deck again.
Why do you people keep saying that to me?
You people? What are you talking about?
But no, you're
so
right.
let's-
Forest is making a very strong comeback in this set. Last set we didn't see it played as much. If we did, it was the neutral variation. Now we're just seeing people go back to its old roots of OTK Roach, but it's got a lot of new tools.
A lot of new tools. So let's get into new Shadow here. So this is looking like a mid-Shadow list from Best Marmot. I can't imagine mid-Shadow has changed that much from my experience. Belenus is a really great 2-drop that just basically got added to the deck. It's a free Angel of the Word effect tied to a 2/2. Essentially, its last words are just deal random damage to an enemy. And just trying to go up the curve to Ektar, as usual. Plus, I want to imagine that most Shadow decks these days are playing the new card from Starforged, which is Saris. Saris is probably one of the best cards in this set, and it fits into pretty much every Shadow deck because it's just really high value. Really quickly, it's a 4-play point 1/4 that evolves into a 3/6. Has Clash, deal 2 damage. At the end of your turn, you gain 2 life. Very potent card. Very hard to trade with.
Okay, now you see the play that Unner just did. He played his Princess Vanguard. He pumped up his Perseus, and he traded into the Belenus. I really like that play because it takes away the option for Best Mormon to just pop his Belenus to take out one of Unner's 1 defense followers.
Right, which he has plenty of in hand at the moment.
Yep.
But as we see, that second Belenus off the top, great top deck.
Yeah, it is a really good draw. He's trading into it again. Wow. Okay.
Interesting.
That is.
I like Unner's play here. I like it.
Really?
Yeah, especially if it's open decklist and you know your opponent's playing cards such as Prince Catacomb coming up on 4. It's Shadow in general. They have cards like,
That's
Soul
fair.
Conversion to draw cards with their followers that are left over. Just take away their options.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I definitely love seeing when Prince Catacomb comes down and gets very little to no value. Love that.
Right. It always feels good.
Indeed it does. Indeed it does. What we can see in our Best Mormon's hand is he's not necessarily sitting on a wealth of options. I mean, he's got
He's not. He's got Ektar.
He's got those. He definitely has Ektars.
Oh my, he definitely has Ektars.
He has one more Ektar than he had, and he had 2. So.
Excellent commentary, Aya. Excellent. I love it.
Top little
notch, baby. I love it. So, okay. So, as we see, Best Marmot has done a really good job of just producing really good options every turn, except for the Prince Catacomb turn. And because of the way Unner played the early game, his mid game now is looking super strong. As we see now, this play that I was talking about, where you can do up to 8 damage on turn 5 with Ephemera and Roundtable Assembly, is just absurd. And we see more Storm followers, yeah, and another Ephemera in hand. I think Best Marmot's just done here.
Well, not necessarily done. Not necessarily. I mean, he's cooked a little bit. You know, he's in the oven. He's in the oven.
Well, there's an Evo next turn that Ephemera can't be dealt with. So we're at least looking at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage. Yep, right out of the hand. So I believe this is the last turn.
He does have another. Yeah, okay. Ignore me. Yep. Sorry, man.
Just like 8 damage. Are you kidding me? 8 damage?
Yeah, it'd take a L right to the face, man.
What kind of L?
It's a big juicy L to the face, bro.
Aptly for sword, when you lose the sword in such a fashion where you're taking 8 damage on turn 5, that is a big juicy L to the face. That's exactly what it is.
Coming to you.
Exactly.
Oh,
couldn't have said it better myself, even though I was the one who said it. But yep, that's nice and over.
See, people like to ban Prime Dragon Keeper, which we'll get into once we actually get to see the deck. I'm assuming both these players are bringing Prime Dragon Keeper, and they both got banned
they
out.
both banned it. Yeah.
Right. And I would say that deck you can play around a little bit easier than these new sword decks. These new sword decks are crazy, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Juliet added a whole new dimension to the deck. Okay, It gave it that commander synergy. In Roundtable Assembly was, I mean, aggro sword was. You can almost hear like the hymns, you know, like they were blessed. It's just all the way. You could just see it, you know, and all the happy aggro sword players are like, we can summon our storm cards from our deck, and we could just jam face. They have to be ecstatic.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about Forest a little bit. So the new Forest, you can go a few different directions with it. Most players are falling back on the Roach plan, but the new thing that Roach is doing is Airbound Barrage. This is probably the biggest tool it got from the new set. 1 play point, bounce an amulet or follower from play back to your hand, deal 3 damage to a follower. Pretty strong effect.
Did Forest really need that? Like,
absolutely it did. Did you see Forest last season? Come on, man.
I did.
And what it does is it basically just gives 6 Nature's Guidance effects to the deck, so you can actually just play through your deck a lot more easily now. You're not going to see a lot of Forest players just sit there not doing anything on turns 4, 5, 6 even, you know, just depending on what their hands are. They actually get to play the game. They get to play spells every single turn. It doesn't feel like this bricky combo deck that you just have to get the right pieces. It has some play to it.
Well, one of the things that's really important to note about Airbound Barrage is that your opponent does have to have something in play in order for it to be played. So you may have to wait for your opponent to actually play something before you can, you know, pull that combo if you need, like if you have Airbound Barrage in hand and you don't have a Nature's Guidance, so it's not exactly the same. But as long as your opponent has stuff in play, it basically is Nature's Guidance. And especially with that new amulet with Spring Green Protection.
Spring Green Protection. Yep.
Oh man.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the amulet synergy that Forest has now. So Forest has the new amulet that we just talked about. Basically 1 play point, 3 countdown, draw a card when it dies, or when it gets bounced to your hand. So perfect synergy with Airbound Barrage and Nature's Guidance. It also pumps one of your followers randomly, +1/+0 at the end of the turn. And also with Wood of Brambles, now having 6 bounce effects, you just get a ton of card draw, a ton of fairies in your hand, a ton of reusable amulets that just get a lot of work done. But, Aya, talk to me about Saris. I know that you know about Saris because we had a lot of playtesting with that card, but talk to us about why this card is so good.
Okay, first and foremost, Saris has the clash effect of deal 2 damage to the enemy follower. This makes it incredibly hard to trade into in most cases. Not necessarily in this one because Lilac's clash effect is going to trigger first, but in most cases, it's very difficult to evenly trade into this card. You can't use your 1/1s to get that extra little 1 damage, so that thing could be a 1/1 and you can never trade into it with a fairy because the clash effect will always kill it. And to add injury to insult, it also heals your leader for 2, which is something that Shadow didn't have before. Okay.
Right, it never
had
had
that. Nope. Well, I mean, it had Demaros, I guess. But,
sure.
You know.
Sure.
Sure. Hey, I'm not counting it. I'm just saying this thing. It is technically healed.
So Dark Blade Fiend, another new card for Shadow. Haven't seen it a lot on the ladder, but obviously a very good value card. I play 0.35 with Ward. Ward always a great card. Necromancy 2, very low Necromancy cost. Deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. Helps you clean up the board. Just a solid 5-drop, right after Saris especially.
Oh yeah, I mean, if Saris happens to stay on board and you drop a Dark Blade Fiend, I mean, your opponent's probably going to be shedding some tears.
Yep.
Well, he's playing his 0.
Interesting. So Unner, instead of normal Roach combo nature, plays out the Goblin Mage for board tempo as opposed to saving it for combo.
Is that right? I don't think so, is it?
I don't know. There's 2 Nature's Guidance in the hand already, so he already has combo pieces, and his opponent's still at 20. So unless he knows a way to push his opponent or chip his opponent down just a little bit, Best Marmot, then I don't think that was the right choice. That's a tough call, though, especially when you're playing against a deck. The reason why it could be an okay call, though, is because Best Marmot only has 2 cards left in hand. Realistically, Unner has a bevy of options to play through here, and he probably just feels like if he can maintain board control right now, especially before something like a Nectar hits, he probably doesn't have to worry too much.
But this is where we're seeing the value of Airbound Barrage, man. You play a Roach, you do some damage, you bounce it back, you shoot your opponent's thing, clear his board. Absolutely savage.
What else can you want?
I would want for it not to be there.
Oh no. No. Airbound Barrage, perfect. I'm so happy that card got added. Made Forest, like, literally not just a good card for the deck, it just literally made Forest play so differently now, or it makes it play so differently now, it feels like a more comfortable and real deck. So,
well,
I can't say enough good things about it.
Well, I will say this about it. It does enable you to burn your, well, maybe not burn, but play your Roaches out, do damage, and not burn your Nature's Guidances, which before, if you wanted to run any additional bounce, you had to run things like Pixie Mischief, maybe even Dungeon Crawler Fairy, but you don't have to do that anymore. You got Airbound Barrage, and on top of that, you can just snipe something and still keep your card. So you can chip away with Roach and still have things. That's
before it was a purely chip damage option. Now it's a chip damage plus kill your opponent's follower. So yeah, absolutely great. Ooh, okay. So Best Marmot, while not having a lot of resources at his disposal, does have the ones he needs versus Roach. He's got big wards. If these are dealt with, he did just use the shadows though on White King. Okay, and then followed up building
he just
up big
said, you know what, man?
Yep.
He said, you know what, man? Deal with it.
Right, deal with it.
And as we can see, oh no.
No Evo points left.
Oh no Evo points. I think there's a face that's about to be annihilated.
Yep. This is a 4/5 ward that cannot basically be attacked through, and Ektar has a full board of followers.
Yeah. So Best Marmot getting the best, pun intended, of Unner, and I definitely, this is, there's nothing he can really do. Plus, he's gonna take damage from killing this ward because of the white. So he's gonna be taking even more damage, even though he's gonna be trading. He takes 1 here. He's gonna be trading out. He's still the Ektar is still in hand. So I mean, we're looking at 12 damage.
12 damage. Yep.
So sorry, man.
Too many damage. I believe Unner knows it's coming. He hasn't really seen Ektar this game. You always feel it.
Yeah, you always know that some hate can't be taken, and then. Yep.
So best Marmot, the animal, we don't know what it is yet. We'll probably have to look that up after the show. Moves on to the next stage. Awesome, or the next round rather.
Best Marmot takes the match there, and will be in the upper finals, and so he's very well positioned to kind of get into Season 3. And this is interesting because Best Marmot, I mean, is a slightly familiar name. We saw him compete a lot in Season 2, and I think just in general, just kind of being somewhat present in the Shadowverse competitive community, and now finally has a good run of it. What's interesting is in the upper finals, because this is double elimination, if you win that, you go directly to the grand finals, which means that you can only get first or second. So Upper Marmot has set himself up to, if he wins this next match, will at least be in Season 3. So we're getting close to that point.
Get it, Marmot.
We're getting very close to that point, but by the same token, because this is double elimination, that is not the last we've seen of Unner. Unner can still make a run from the lower bracket to kind of come back and get a spot in Season 3. So there's still a lot of possibilities out there. We're not in the lower bracket just yet, so we haven't seen any elimination, but let us take a look at the bracket and see what exactly the situation is. There we go. The upper final is going to be Best Marmot versus Dasvi, and that's going to be super important. Again, whoever wins that match is in Season 3, and we'll get to know who those opponents in the lower round 1 is going to be. We've got Bade, Bad. I don't know how to pronounce that.
I think it's bad. I think it's
bad. Bade.
Nice.
That's what my brain tells me is Bade. And then Unner in the lower bracket. Their opponents yet to be determined, as this is a qualifier bracket, and so there's a lot of open entrants, and we don't have the set 8 players when we begin necessarily. So, who will rise up to the top? We don't know. What's interesting to me is that we haven't seen any of the bottom 6 round-robin placers so far. They could come up in the losers bracket, but no sign of them just yet. And that's just, Shadowverse competition is very, very tough. And there's a lot of people who have been practicing and preparing and want to go to the World Grand Prix, for example.
I imagine that a lot of players are taking a lot more time right now, especially because, again, it's a new set. You might not have faced against the opponent's specific card choices in their decks. You don't really know how they play out. So realistically, during your turn, take as much time as you can to kind of just filter through what you think they can do. You know what I mean? Based on the cards that are in their deck. So I imagine a lot of players are just taking that into consideration, taking their time, and not just blowing through their matches because it's not expected yet.
So let's take this moment while we are waiting for the next match to get set up, and we're going to be watching Dasvi versus Best Marmot. Let's take this time. It's a new set, it's a new expansion like you mentioned. What, in your guys' minds, are the most consistent decks if there was a new player coming in and be like, what should I aim to do in Starforged Legends? What are your guys' recommendations for decks to start out with and to start learning the game with? Exilium, what do you think?
Sure. So I think this expansion, more than any other expansion before it, has opened up the field. Before we saw neutral deck, neutral deck, neutral deck, this aggro deck, this aggro deck, this aggro deck, and one control deck. This season, you can literally pick up any class and just play it right now. Neutral has not basically gone off the radar. It's not even existent at the moment, maybe in small forms. But to start with, Aggro Blood is a great option right now. You have a lot of new cards you can play into it. Play some serpents, you know what I mean? Play some snakes. Prime Dragon Keeper is stunningly consistent. Forest is great. Aggro Sword is probably the best bet. If you want to play a deck that's consistent, easy to understand, and just crush the ladder with, Aggro Sword is probably my pick right now. But all of the decks are pretty consistent so far.
So as a new player, you can pick a gamut of decks to kind of field and learn to play. Aya Senpai, do you have any particular thoughts about some of these decks that you would prefer for a new player particularly, or do you think any of these choices is a good place to start for learning the game?
I think for learning the game, that aggro period is what people should do. The aggro will teach you basically everything about the game. When you're being controlled by your opponent, how do you respond? When you are constantly getting hit in the face, how do you respond? It teaches you to trade. It teaches you all of those things. So I would highly recommend playing an aggro deck, such as EXO said, Aggro Sword being probably the best bet, or Aggro Blood for sure. Those would be the two decks I would definitely recommend in new player.
Aggro Blood, Aggro Sword. There you guys have it. Those are the decks to look out for. And of course, Starforged Legends has introduced new options to either side of it, but the core base kind of decision making and gameplay mechanics are not changed. So interesting.
Absolutely.
And would love to, if you guys go over to the Shadow Nexus Discord, which I'm sure you can find somewhere on IS Senpai's Twitter or long profile of stuff. I'm sure they'd be happy to help you out making those decks and kind of helping some of the new players along. But
Absolutely.
we're about to jump into the next game, Best Marmot versus Dasvi. Now, we've seen... So let's talk a little bit about Mid Shadow, just because that's kind of a deck that's been around through a few different expansions now and has iterated a little bit. There was a Exter nerf in the last expansion, and now there's a new card that's a talk of the town that you guys talked about a little bit, Sarah's, right? Which is in many ways like a very shadow-oriented Sybil, I guess, just because of this constant value that it provides. But what do you think about Mid Shadow in this particular list? Do you think any other form of Shadowcraft deck like Nephthys or anything is taking more favor, or do you think this is kind of the list to run?
Well, I'll say that Nephthys is extremely strong right now. Saris is also great in that deck. Twilight Queen, a new legendary that we'll cover once we get to a Nep deck, added a lot of consistency to what the deck can do. So it's essentially a different deck. You're running a different curve now, 4 drops instead of 3 drops. And also Atomy. My pet deck is finally a real deck. Atomy is so good right now.
It run a DCT, man.
It did. You guys thought it was memes. Not so memey anymore.
Well, remember, let's go back in the day a little bit. Remember back in the day when no one wanted to even look at Soul Dealer, but then Soul Dealer started being really good when Vengeance Blood was a deck? You know, like, it's the same thing. They built a lot of support for an archetype. I'm not sure if it was intended, but they built a lot of support for an archetype, and it just happens to be incredibly good. Atomy is at the top of the... Yeah, and it's consistent. It's at the top of the world right now. So, good on
let's
it.
Get into this oh, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say I hope to actually see an Atomy deck today.
Oh yeah, 100%. I hope. I don't know if players on the West have really caught on to Atomy yet. I don't see it a lot on ladder, and I definitely haven't seen one in a tournament ever, really. But yeah, I really hope to see that deck. So in this match, we noticed that the matchup a little bit different now. Both players decided to ban out Sword this time. They listen to us, they're watching, and they're listening to us. They know. They know. So we get to actually see some Prime Dragon Keeper here. Talk to us about Prime Dragon Keeper. Why is it good? Why are people playing it?
All right. Prime Dragon Keeper is a 3 play point follower that is a 1/5 that when it's an overflow, it can't be attacked. And also, while it's an overflow, whenever you play something that has the original cost of 3 or less, it'll do 2 damage to an opposing follower, and it'll do 1 damage to the opponent's face. So the reason that this is incredibly good is because the entire deck is literally centered around Prime Dragon Keeper. So you want to ramp as quickly as you can, and another Prime Dragon Keeper.
Oh lordy.
That is scary,
We'll get to see that card in action starting next turn, especially against Forest.
There's not much Forest can really do about it. But continuing forward, another reason that it's so good is that it sets up damage for you to be able to hit really hard in the later game with cards like Forte and Genesis Dragon. So you're just softening your opponent up while controlling the board at the same time and setting up for really big lethal.
Yes, and really easy. So now we get to see the value. So right now, it can't be attacked, 1/5, very hard to deal with. We do see a Dance of Death, but that would take up the entire turn of Daspi next turn. Probably going to do it. Usually when you see a Prime Dragon Keeper, you're going to kill it out. But every single time you play... Yeah, snap kill. Every single time you see a follower come into play, a dragon follower that costs 3 play points or less, it's going to deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower and 1 damage to the enemy itself. So... especially after evolution, it's just so hard to deal with for most decks, and it just incremental value. Ivory Dragons come in to deal damage, redraw you cards. You know, you've got Matilda to come down and draw you into a Flame Lizard, or a Fire Lizard rather, and it can deal an extra damage when it comes into play, so it essentially deals 3, so just tons of value in the end of the game. Plus, you get to play 3 Dragoon Scythers now. Dragoon Scyther has always been great, but in this deck, it is absurd. I know I've been using that word a lot today, but my god, are some of these new interactions and synergies absurd that they came out with in Starforged Legends. I love it.
I actually am incredibly happy about, and I know some people are going to be like, oh my god, Aya, what's wrong with you, man? But I am incredibly happy about Prime Dragon Keeper as a card. It just, the idea of the card, to me, is incredible. It's something that you build around, and it's incredibly flexible to build around. You can build the same kind of early game that most of the decks are playing, but you can run a Ramp Dragon package. You can jam Bahamut, you can jam Zeus's, you can jam
whatever you want. I mean, it's still Ramp Dragon. Yeah.
Yep. It's still Ramp Dragon. You just have a more solid mid game that. And the other thing about Prime Dragon Keeper is that it can bait out a lot of your opponent's options, so that when you jam those big things, it's just that much harder to deal with.
So let's kind of cover the last couple turns. So the best Marmot did pre-evo the Prime Dragon Keeper, but did not use it to take out the 2-1 to basically guarantee damage on the Fina, and ended up having to trade his Scyther into the Fina. So kind of losing a little bit of value with that play. We also see Das B on the return just go for a combo turn instead of dealing with one of the Prime Dragon Keepers, saying, you know what, I don't care about your combo, I'm going to win first. But there's no Nature's Guidance or Airbound Barrage in hand yet.
Yeah, that's what I find to be a little bit questionable. See, while he has the 2-0s, he doesn't have the damage in hand necessary to be able to follow through with the way that he played out that previous turn. So I don't exactly know what he's intending to do, and right now this board is really big, and Cassiopeia is not going to deal with it.
Oh, he got it. Okay.
Wow.
Can he set up a lethal here? So he has access to all roaches and 2 0 costs. I believe no, because
he doesn't
have any evos. So yeah, he cannot kill this turn, which honestly he should have thought about, right? Even in under perfect scenario, like where you get this draw, where you get your Airbound Barrage or Nature's Guidance, can I kill my opponent? That's why I set up my combo turns. But even looking at this, he just can't. So he's going to have to do a defensive route with either, you know, the Fairy Beast or a Cassiopeia. But Cassiopeia doesn't do anything right now against these Prime Dragon Keepers. There's 12 toughness just between those two followers.
Right. It does nothing. His Dance of Death now is just sitting there like, well, I don't do anything.
Yep. Whoops.
You know, so that was one of those times where you should have considered taking that Prime Dragon Keeper. I don't think people really know that yet. I don't think people know immediately, you know what, gotta kill it.
You cannot take time against Prime Dragon Keeper. One of its inherent good things about it, like the thing that makes it really good, is it just keeps chipping your opponent every single turn it's in play. Every single time you play these small followers and fill up your board, you're dealing extra damage. And then all of a sudden, Genesis Dragon or Forte pops out, and then it's crazy. Like, then I have to deal with all these followers I can't attack. They have so much toughness. What am I supposed to do against all of this? And I think that Das B kind of put himself into this awkward situation.
Yeah. By not taking out that Prime Dragon Keeper, now he's suffering the consequences of his actions. This definitely feels bad.
Yes. Now we can just see another trade. Some Ayella's come down. He can even play Ayella with a Sybil if he wants to go back up to 20. I mean, options endless here.
Hey, putting yourself at 1 damage out of any potential lethal is great, but that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to apply as much pressure as he could and just keep playing things that would do damage.
So he
did draw another Airbound Barrage.
1, 2, 3, 4, and then he can go 5, 6, 7, which is so close.
Yeah, it's not there.
1 damage off from being able to win here.
This is one of those moments where you just feel awful.
Yep, I needed to deal 1 extra chip damage this turn, or this game. And that Dance of Death on that given turn would have done it.
Would have given him the damage, yep.
And we would have been on the same turn, less damage to his face. He still would have had the turn to Evo the Fina if he needed to. So just ordering, Forest combo ordering is super important.
Think about how much damage he took just by not killing that 1 Prime Dragon Keeper.
Yep.
Most of the damage he took was because he didn't kill the 1 Prime Dragon Keeper.
Right.
And
He's gonna do the roach business. He's gonna do it all.
Well, he may as well.
Right.
Feels awful. Yep. And you know that feeling when you just, I'm one off of lethal.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, Angelic Snipe, if you're playing Roach and you're not playing at least a copy or two of Angelic Snipe in your deck, you're probably doing something wrong. Angelic Snipe instead of one of those Airbound Barrages would have been lethal.
Yeah. I actually run 2 Angelic Snipes on my list, so yeah, I've been loving it.
Keep in mind, there's a lot of new cards to run. I get that, you know, spring green protection, you know, Airbound Barrage, all these new fancy things. But if you're playing Roach combo, still got to play a little bit of Roach combo.
Well, you should have enough room, right? You're not gonna run. You don't have to run 3 Spring Greens.
It's tough. It's tough. I don't think
Yeah.
you run 3 of that card, but I think you run about 2 of it, maybe 1 just for value if you need to squeeze some cards in. But like, there's a lot of good cards that you can play in Forest now. It's hard to build.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we got Aggro Blood, one of the decks we were talking about before this match, coming up against Mid Shadow. That's not a hand you want.
No. As far as Best Marmot is concerned, we're talking.
Right.
As far as Das
right.
V,
Das
that is
V's
exactly the
hand-
type of hand you like.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, and a double Caraboss draw.
Not necessarily what you want to see, but at least they'll have that end game.
Yeah. Hey, at the very least, he'll be able to jam the Caraboss, and it's animated. Good on you, brother.
That's right.
Love my animated card.
Animated
So-
cards are great. That's one of the greatest reasons to play this game, beyond just the fact that it's awesome, is that the animations on the art are just crazy cool.
For now.
Yep. So, let me ask you, if it's just random, if you could animate any card right now that you don't have already animated, what would it be?
That I don't already have animated.
Don't have animated.
Altered Fate.
Altered Fate. Ah, okay.
I love the art on that card. Love it.
Hey, it's
And
pretty sweet.
I just want to see it sitting there. I might not play it in every deck, but I'll tell you what, I'll be looking at that thing.
Hey, it gives you a reason to build OTK Dragon. Hey, man, you got Prime Dragon Keeper. You can put Prime Dragon Keeper and OTK Dragon.
Oh,
Pop, pop,
okay.
pop.
New decks, people. We're going back to my old school. Playing some OTK Dragon with Prime Dragon Keeper. I'm in. I'm already sold. I'm building it right after this stream today. Let's go.
Okay,
Seeing
well,
Urias put in a ton of work here.
Urias tends
And-
to do that again. Shadow.
That's
And,
smart, with kind of a misplay there, taking an extra free damage.
yeah, he really took damage he didn't need to take. I know that sometimes you kind of get like a bit of a tunnel vision. You kind of forget that certain effects take place, and I know how that is. But things like that, you know, that 1 damage, especially since we see that he doesn't have any heals in his hand, could come back to bite him later.
More than come back to bite him, he's playing against Aggro Blood, where if damage counts, that is one deck where damage counts more than most decks, like every single point. Because they are trying to get you from 20 to 0 as fast as they possibly can. And you helping them out, not what you want to be doing. But this play, absolutely absurd. I love it.
That's the word of the day for you, man.
I love it, man. I love Starforged Legends. Like, synergy is back. It's
Yeah.
great.
I am above all else. I am ecstatic to see how much synergy has returned to the game. Like, not just simple, you know what, man? I'm gonna play my really big guy, and you're just gonna die. Like, it's
Right,
not
that's
more of that. It's no more of that.
This new Dark Blade Fiend right here is doing massive work.
It is. Tons of
And
work.
because of the Blood-Fed Flower Bed, that's going to be game.
Yeah,
Even
he
without
actually-
Blood-Fed, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, he kind of, well, no, it is definitely because of the blood fed, because he took the damage the last turn. So,
Right.
he actually killed himself.
I mean, there is 14 damage staring down, so two activations of Blood-Fed technically didn't matter in this scheme of things, but still, that Morphine essentially allowed for this win to just, like, be free.
Good job.
Taking extra damage, I don't care. I got sweet cards, let's go.
Yep. Ektar still doing Ektar things. Pumping
Best
board, taking
Marmot.
name.
What's super interesting to me is looking at these mid-shadow lists, and obviously Ektar is being able to show how good it is, that huge, +2 damage buff across the board.
It got nerfed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really think, I really think the key cards here, because obviously in the last expansion, right, Hector, after it was nerfed, was not quite as prominent. We didn't really see it use as a stable win condition. I mean, it was still included in decks for sure, but people were actually just not running Shadowcraft at all. We saw it, right? The Blade Fiend, and you either get the Blade Fiend or you get Ceres. Either way, it really helps you kind of control the board and maintain for that turn 7 presence, whereas I think before in Wonderland Dreams there wasn't quite a way for Shadow to defend its board quite as well. And Blade Fiend being so high stated and being ward, plus its effect is, we just saw it there, right?
That's the key word, is its stats. So Shadow before, 5 play points or less, didn't really have any big statted followers. You're talking about,
Serb was the card then.
Serb, yeah, 5 play point 3/3. You're talking about Prince Catacomb, 4 play point 1/1. Bone Chimera, 3 play point 1/1. You know what I mean? Pops out skeletons. Like, it had no stats. Ceres, massive stats. Blade Fiend, massive stats. You know what I mean? So
crazy effects on both cards.
Yes.
Right.
Crazy effects on both cards.
Yes. And so I feel like in both games we've seen Best Marmot win out with Hector. It's really the turns that came before where those cards just gave so much value that by the time it was Hector's turn.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I'm pretty convinced, and I said, a little earlier in the week, somebody asked me, hey, what are you looking, what do you think would be good advice to take into the Shadowverse Open? And I said, consistent decks and decks that just have, good plays every turn. Like, those are the kinds of decks that you want to run in this qualifier format, right? Because it's not like you're matching up against a particular player. You're playing the field. Right. So I really feel like Best Marmot has done that in a very good way, and has earned himself a spot into Season 3, and is now kind of deciding whether he wants to be first or second from that qualifier, which is somewhat important in terms of seeding as well as the prizes that you get. But he should be feeling pretty good about himself. Best Marmot will be our first player to make it into Season 3. Let's take a look at the bracket to see who else is up for the running here. Dasvi, of course, not out. Just like Unner isn't out, but Best Marmot has put them two in a perilous position, and so we are still waiting for the lower round ones to fill out. Who is going to be Bad's opponent and who's going to be Unner's opponent, yet to be decided as the tournament tries to catch up with us. As we have already made it to the grand finals here, at least one of the players there. But so far, what do you guys think about the decks that we've seen? We haven't seen too much, but we've talked a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the other kind of third deck that we're seeing here. Forestcraft, Forest Roach, right? There's a few ways I think that you can approach Forest in this expansion. And in a very, non-joking manner, right? I think we're out of that Wonderland Dreams territory now. So
absolutely out of that.
So let's talk about Forest a little bit and kind of consider its options, right? We talked a little bit about Airbound Barrage, and now I think what's interesting to think about is cards in hand is kind of a very big effect, I think, for Sword, and kind of balancing the idea between playing Roach or playing something more control-oriented and going for the late-game options that it got. What do you guys think about kind of what are the go-to options for this craft now? Let's start with Exodia.
Sure. So like I was saying, like there's just a lot more play to the deck now, right? So like that's the big takeaway from this new set. Now, Wood of Brambles used to be a great card. Now it's an absurd card, okay? Because you can bounce it over and over and over and over and just get consistent value. You really don't need any other fairy generation if you have these cards in combination. And it can kind of shore up your early game, your mid game. You have cards like Magical Fairy Girl Lilac to help you deal with really pesky followers, and then you can fall back on your combo. So it has a lot better early game than it did before, because you still don't want to mutter your early game with cards that are basically going to take away from your Roaches with Goblin Mages and Phoenix and things like that. And now you just have so many things that you can do. You can play the Spring Green Protection to bounce it and draw some cards. Pump your fairies so that they can trade more efficiently. Wood of Brambles, trade more efficiently. As far as the options in the deck and what you can do with it, realistically, you can go Roach combo, you can go aggro with it and play the new Elf Song card, which is another fairy generation card that pumps your whole board. You can take it way late game and play, I can't remember the card name off the top of my head, the new Forest card, 5 play points, puts a 0-cost amulet in your hand. You know what I'm talking
Venus.
about? Venus, perfect. You can go Venus for a lot of late game card advantage when the metagame slows down and you're playing against control decks. You can just get a lot more consistent combos with just being able to draw a ton more cards throughout the course of the game. So Forest is just really robust now, and you can kind of do anything you want with it. Realistically, though, I'd probably stick with the Roach plan because it's still the most potent thing it has access to.
Aya Senpai, as a avid Forest Craft fan and player of the craft.
It's gonna be forever, Aya. You know this.
I know. I've accepted this.
What is your recommendation? So Exodium says Roach is the way to go. Is there one that would you agree with them, or is there a personal kind of style of Forest Craft that you would like to play?
Actually, I've been enjoying Tempo Forest a lot. That's the Forest list that I've been playing. Again, like a lot of the cards that he mentioned with Spring Green Protection, Airbound Barrage, etc. But I'm running like Elfchild Maze. I'm not going with the full Roach combo. It's in the deck, but you also have Cassiopeia. That's a great card to gain tempo. You still have access to Will of the Forest and all that, as you mentioned before about adding cards to hand. So that's what I've been playing. And Tia right now, I think is actually I think that's a great card right now. I think it's great. So that's the Forest deck that I've been playing. And but if I were to recommend a Forest deck to people, I would recommend Aggro Forest. I think that deck is sweet. That was it Aperia, the 5-drop ambush.
5/4 ambush.
Yeah, ambush. Just pop. Get him.
It gives you Liza, or Elf Girl Liza. So
Super
I mean, you
strong
can
right
protect
now.
her. Yeah, especially with all the PDKs running around. So that's what I would recommend to people. Aggro.
Well, we look forward to seeing more Forest decks being represented, as well as different iterations of Shadowcraft decks that are available out there. I think a lot of people are kind of taking Sword and PDK as their two kind of staple decks, and then trying to figure out what third deck that they want to run. Shadow has definitely, Best Mama has convinced me that Shadow is something that we should look at more carefully.
Of course.
Seems like it's very strong right now. But we're about to jump into a game in an earlier round here as players are catching up. It's going to be Ita Legend versus Eternity. I'm not
Eternity.
really sure. I'm not. Oh, you guys are obviously familiar with Eternity.
Oh yeah,
Tell me about Eternity.
All right, well, Eternity is an avid Sword player. He's been playing Sword for a long time. He's actually won 2 of our tournaments. Okay, he's won 2. Actually, I'm sorry, he's won 3 of our tournaments. Okay, so we know Eternity. We know him.
Eternity's coming for that booty. He's coming for the Shadowverse Open booty.
He's gonna storm the booty, man.
That's right. That's right. That's what Sword does these days. You know what I mean? That's literally what it does. They even added Romeo and Juliet. You don't really play Romeo in the decks, but you know what I mean? Like, it's all about that love, you know what I mean? And bringing it to your opponent.
Yep. Well, we'll see. Here it is. Eternity versus Ita Legends. And he is already up 1-0, he being Eternity. Up 1-0, Juan with Haven. So now it's the tried and true Swordcraft. Let's see if he can do what he is.
Is this mid sword?
It's a mid sword.
Is this high cost commander sword?
I hope it is. I hope that it is, man.
So a sword deck that we have not talked about today is a slower iteration of Sword that also got a ton of tools. So we will most definitely see, as we see in hand already, actually all the cards I was about to talk about, they have a new, essentially made leader that's a 1/2 now. That gets to fetch a commander that costs 5 or less when it first comes into play. So actually better on curve than made leader. And then you can enhance it for 4, and then you get a 5 or less cost and a 6 or more cost in your hand. So card draw now in Sword. And Mars. Talk to us about Mars, Aya, because I didn't know much about Mars before the other day. We saw a ton of it. Tell me why that card is in this deck.
Okay, so what Mars does is it's a 2/3 for 3. It's a commander. When you play a Swordcraft follower, it gains Clash gain +1/+0, and it gains +0/+1 when that follower comes into play. So that's every follower that comes into play. After that, that is an incredibly sweet card. We saw that card in the release event go to work because Fantasy was putting it to work.
Whoa!
I never saw that before now.
I've never seen that. What?
That was sweet.
Is that like the new leader's like thing that happens? Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I need the new leader now. Are you kidding me with that?
I did not know that was a thing.
Okay.
That's
All right.
pretty
New
sweet.
new goal. Need to get 1,000,000 packs to get this leader because my God, is that amazing. Anyway.
That was sweet.
Yeah. All right. So Mars, great card, especially if you play it alongside things like Roundtable Assembly. You don't need to, but it just definitely makes it better, especially when you're playing cards like Romeo. Romeo, no 3-play point 2/3 commander with ward that sword got. So basically, you just get big wards. You get a ton of wards over time and a lot of value out of all of your cards. An interesting turn this game is Prime Dragon Keeper's already in play for Intel Legends.
It's not enough yet.
I'm liking the use of Goat. We got a 3/3 ward with in combination with Mars. Like, that's really sweet. And he is going to be able to take out this Prime Dragon Keeper if he wants to. Because if not, this is really the only turn he has to do. The only turn he has, because next turn he won't be able to attack it.
I've really never seen a Prime Dragon Keeper player actually put one of those out before Overflow. It basically is just, you're not getting the full value out of the card, right?
Well, actually, one of the things that I do with the deck is I actually will play it on curve against certain decks. Like, I'll play it on curve against D-Shift just to make sure that I can at least start pushing some damage against them. They can't easily deal with it on turn 3 with it having 5 defense. I will also do it against Aggro Sword because it'll allow me to trade into their, their 2/1s and et cetera, while still having a 1/3 on board. So I still get to trade with that card. I'll do that in those matchups. And I think maybe
choice in this matchup, though.
Yeah, I don't know about in this matchup, but maybe Intel Legends didn't necessarily look at the deck list and kind of assume that it was
Maybe
Aggro
he just
Sword.
thought it was Aggro Sword, yeah. Only reason I say that is because now if we look at the options that both players have, like we see that Eternity just has a flow of cards coming, whereas Intel Legends really just has a couple of things left to do. They're not bad, a couple of things, like this Breath of the Salamander can clear the entire board. But after that, it's really just PDK has to basically put in the rest of the work for a while here.
Oh, this is the easiest Breath of the Salamander in the
Yeah,
world.
easy. Plays out the Fire Lizard.
Wow. I don't know if I
Really
agree with that.
Really just doesn't like getting value out of these PDKs, let me tell you.
Wow, look at that draw.
Yeah, that draw was insane.
Yeah, that's a big boy right there.
That's a big boy. One of the reasons why you play the late game sword decks is you get this big ward that basically when it dies, it comes back as a 2/3 ward. So very potent.
So we can definitely see the value of that guy. Now, while the Bane did kill the big dude, he still leaves another guy behind. Of course, it's going to be dealt with right now. But, I mean, it's... Yeah. Prime Dragon Keeper doing what Prime Dragon Keeper does.
Those evolves, man. I cannot handle this. I can't. This is so freaking cool, man.
Yeah, but I don't... Do you think he should have evolved the Prime Dragon Keeper? Or...
I think he had to just in order to basically deal with the board the appropriate way to not lose any value.
Ooh, boy. I like it. I like it. Mars into double Juliet? Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's not what you want to see!
Okay.
That's not what you want to see. And...
Sometimes...
Oh, don't do it to him.
It doesn't matter what you draw. Sometimes it doesn't matter how you play, it matters how you draw.
Yeah, and in that particular case, he played to his outs, Intel Legends, winning that game with the draw on the Forte. Wow.
Maybe we're just dumb and we have no idea how to play Prime Dragon Keeper because he made that game look super easy.
He did! He made that game. He said, you know what, man? I know every card that's on top of my deck. I know exactly what I'm going to draw. And you know what? I know my outs, bro. So I'm going to play this. Yeah. Deal with it.
Deal with it. Service. So Eternity, basically his tournament, not life, but his tournament is basically a step up or a step down backed up by his favorite archetype. So I feel like he's in the driver's seat, but I don't know what this Haven deck's like. So we're going to see.
Well, we don't know exactly all of what Eternity's deck is capable of yet. I mean, he was playing against PDK, and with the slower sword list, that can be a little bit of it can be problematic for them again with PDK matchup. So, however, mid sword has historically done incredibly well versus Haven. Ooh, big boy Leonidas.
I like it. So
Man,
Gelt,
he said,
by the way, guys, Gelt is crazy now, right? Because like Perseus can activate it if you want to play Perseus just to have an early game option. It activates off of Romeo and Juliet, Mars. Like, essentially, it's just a 2-play point 3/2 with Ward that you just play after something now. Just really good value.
Oh man. So what we see is, I think this is just the Aether Aegis list, right? I mean,
Yeah, so talk to everybody about Aether Aegis and why people are choosing to run that card specifically, what it does, and that kind of thing.
All right, so Aether of the White Wing is a 6-play point 1/3 that when it has fanfare, it brings a follower into play that is less than your total number of play points. Okay, so if you're, let's say you're at 10 play points, you play this, you get to bring out an Heavenly Aegis. If you're at 6 play points, you get to bring out whatever your 5 play point guy is. So it's always one play. It's less than what your total play point is. The reason that this is seeing play is because this card can generate a massive amount of value. Over, like, it can be played all along the late game curve, and it can pull very, very high value cards. It can pull stuff like Moon Amaraj. You can pull stuff like Luxhorn Ceresa if people are playing that.
Taurus.
It can play Taurus the Great. And as we already mentioned, Heavenly Aegis as well. So it has a lot of potential targets that it could get as the later the game goes. And that's why people are
basically
playing.
just turns it into a toolbox instead of just like,
Yes.
I play Heavenly Aegis, that's it. Now you actually can play just one Aegis in your deck and then just play a toolbox of followers up the curve. Which I think gives the deck a completely new dimension and fresh look, and exactly what it needs.
Yep. So he's opting to play this staircase now. I mean, would it have been...
As opposed to scripting there.
Right, which I'm thinking if he was going to play it, why would he play it there and not just script to get rid of, to protect, or to help protect his ward? I don't know.
Yeah, and that is an interesting play. And there's no Themis, as we see in hand for Eta Legends, so he might get lucky here.
Ooh, so he just drew Berserker, which is actually Temple Ogre. And he could, if he evos it, he can actually clear out the Juliet and the Gelt. So, because it can attack twice. So what the card actually does is that if any damage that would be dealt to it that's 2 or less, would be reduced to 0 on it. And every time it attacks, it gets +0/+1. And when it's evolved, it can attack twice.
This song's for you.
Yeah, that's a crazy amount of value. Decided not to go for it this turn, though.
No, he decided
Which is interesting.
The real battle.
The reason why I say it's interesting is because we know Eternity's deck, and Eta Legends has played against it already, that it has a lot of wards. So not getting advantage off of the small followers when you can, and then they're just resting behind wards for the rest of the game, I feel like that's pretty tough. It looks like Eternity is running Perseus for that Gelt combination early. I like it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense for him to be doing that. But either way, I do think that I want to see this Berserker come down. I wanted to see it come down. I wanted to see it do some work. Or rather, Temple Ogre, because that's what it actually is. I would like to see that card come out and do something. It's just, in my experience, I've had a very difficult time playing the card. Like, I like the card in concept, but in reality, it just doesn't feel like it doesn't.
Interesting. Okay, opting to go for board clear and small followers instead of the Alwedas to push here.
Mm-hmm.
And this has to be a Berserker turn, right? Because, like,
yes,
next turn
100%.
you know front guard generals the card, and, you know.
You have to play... Ooh, well... Yeah, okay. I still think you play it. I still think you play it.
Well, Darkjon could clear the whole board, but it would use the Evo point, which I don't think he really wants to do.
Well, he wants... If you're going to use the Evo, I think you should use it on something that actually generates a lot of value, and this card does that. This generates a ton of value. So it's going to be able to take out the Mars, it's also going to be able to take out the Gelt, and it's going to take no damage. Oh, he's not... Oh, he's taking out the Perseus. Oh, okay, I guess I can...
Basically just setting up for Darkjon, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I can understand that.
This is probably a very easy Evo front guard general here to clear out that Berserker. That Berserker can't really stay in play. I mean,
Yeah,
it can, but I don't think Eternity wants that.
No, I do not believe that Eternity is, saying, "Hey, bro, just hit me what you got, man." Like I don't
Right.
think I don't think he's gonna be doing that, letting that card grow and grow and grow, and I don't think that's a wise idea.
So realistically, I think the best option here is to just front guard. I might not even Evo, but thinking about how I'm gonna win this game, right? How do I win this if I'm the sword player? Alwita's here puts my opponent to 9. I still have an Evo point left, and then Albert can be used to finish the game. But then I have to deal with this Berserker. If I use my Evo point here, I'm not gonna have the backup Evo for an Albert late game, and if Haven heals any, it might be really hard for me to actually finish the game. So this is a tough spot for Eternity, I think.
It is a tough spot, but I think he just felt a little bit of pressure from the Berserker, just a little. I mean, again, if he leaves it up, and let's say that Ita Legends does actually have an answer to the front guard general, then he could be taking damage to the face.
Yeah.
With that, and that's twice. So I think that I don't necessarily disagree with his perception of getting rid of it.
Oh. Doesn't deal with any of the followers in play.
Yeah.
Never mind about that damage I was talking about.
Yeah.
And the Shield of Flame, what a draw. Okay.
Yeah, I'm very confused right now.
Oh my goodness.
All right, Exo, you go ahead and break it down for me, man. I got question marks.
I can't break this one down, my friend. Leaving a 7-4 in play, playing against Sword. Ooh.
Feels.
Youchies. Now I don't know what his options are, honestly. Like, Themis here isn't even that good.
No, it isn't. And then he also. Oh no. Oh no.
I think
he has
basically
to
just concede with that play.
Well, he has to hope Tribunal hits the 7-4, and it didn't.
Okay, winner,
Again?
no chicken dinner.
Well, that's over.
My bad.
Front guard just said, you know what, man? Dodging, bro.
You didn't want to kill me, so I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, that's literally the lay of the land right there.
Eternity taking it down.
Eternity winning Shadow Nexus tournaments and now looking to win a Starforged Legends Shadowverse Open tournament as well. Pretty cool. What do you guys think about Commander Sword? Talk to me a little bit more. I mean, we got to talk about it just a little bit, but overall, what is the look of the deck? What makes it so effective? Why is this deck being played right now? What do you think, Exo?
Sure. So like I said before, it has more card draw in the form of a tutor that you can enhance to draw 2 cards instead of 1. And it's on curve efficient. It's a 1-2 as well as a 1 instead of a 1-1 that Made Leader used to be. You have a lot more rush options, a lot more wards. So essentially there's a 2-drop 2-1 with rush now. You've got the new Juliet, that you can play instead of Novice Trooper, basically just to synergize with Romeo and things like that, so you can have more cost-efficient plays later in the game. You see Gelt now as an actual playable card. So basically it's just more consistent, has a lot more options through the game, and it can present an end game, especially with Leonidas. If Leonidas ever dies in a game, Sword pretty much just takes over, because all of their value cards just get insane. Like Alwita's Commands gets insane, Mars with other cards gets insane. They still have access to Council of Card Knights and Roundtable Assembly if they want to play all of these things. There's just so many options for the deck now, with Rush and Storm all across the board. It looks like a pretty real deck now.
Senpai, what do you consider this deck in context of aggro Sword? If you were to play Swordcraft, why would you play aggro Sword over Commander? Do you think there's a space for each? Do you think there's a time and place for each?
I think there is a space for each. The way that, if we look at just the way Eternity built his deck, I would imagine that his deck does incredibly well versus the aggro variation of Sword. Mm-hmm. I mean, he could have a really, really hard to deal with Ward and Gelt on turn 2 if he drops Perseus on 1. And not only that, but his followers are just better built to trade. So But I would say, in the context of the current meta, the aggro variation is better just because it could deal a lot more damage. It has better matchups. I feel like the mid sword variation is more geared towards knowing, okay, I know I'm going to be playing against certain types of decks, whereas aggro is, hey, if I get a great hand, I'm probably going to do really well and or win.
That's the new thing. That's Season 3's thing. But let's take a look at the bracket and see where we're at. Eternity moving on. Going to go to the first lower round that we're going to broadcast here. Well, I guess the second lower round that we're going to broadcast. Bad versus Eternity, and then Unner versus Thundy. And so I guess we're gonna see Eternity again, Bad versus Eternity, and I'm actually quite curious to see, because at this point we're kind of in the elimination phase here, right? So their backs are against the wall, and they need to move all the way to the lower finals and beat Dasvi to have a chance, or rather to be into Season 3. So these people are kind of walking on thin ice right now. But we'll see. I think we've seen a good breadth of decks here. You know, a lot of different. PDK seems to be the most commonly brought, and I'm actually, you know, somewhat surprised that, you know, people aren't going to aggro sword, because typically aggro, especially early in the stage of the expansion, is really consistent. I guess maybe it's just being banned out, but. Certainly, I feel like aggro sword is the first deck to choose, and then PDK being the secondary.
Well, PDK is just as consistent as an aggro deck. Like, it doesn't suffer from the same Brick Dragon hands that you saw in the past, where you would just be like, I don't have ramp, I can't play the game. Now it has a ton of 2 and 3 drops that it can just do stuff with now, so it's not just sitting there anymore.
And certainly, that ramp effect still present for Dragon, but seemingly not really the focus anymore, with Prime Dragon Keeper being the...
It doesn't need to be, but it's always the focus.
Yeah.
It's definitely the focus, because that's the class, man.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. So, what do you guys think out of the players that we have seen? Of course, Best Bomber is already in there, but let's kind of throw him into the mix as well. Out of what you guys have seen, who do you have confidence in kind of moving forward as maybe getting into Season 3 and then also just kind of winning first place in this particular qualifier? What have you liked out of what you've seen so far, Exo?
Well, I like Eternity. I think the deck that he got banned out, I'm not entirely sure, was a rune deck, and he made it to the top with a rune deck, and I really want to see that, because you don't see a lot of rune, or I haven't at least seen a lot of rune this expansion yet. So I think he has a good choice. He obviously understands the decks that he's bringing and what they're well positioned against, especially bringing something like late game Swordcraft, things like that. And I think if he does make it to the finals, I do think that Best Marmot's deck choices are for this tournament. So I think he might actually just take this one.
What about for you, Aya?
I actually really like Best Marmot right now. Like, he's in the final already, but I actually like the way his decks were constructed, the way, especially a Shadowless. I was really digging that. So he's kind of like, he's my guy right now. I'm sorry, Eternity. I like you, man, but I like
Eternity. You cannot win for Eternity anymore. You've already taken your fair share, but I think the match is ready to go. So let's jump in and keep chewing forward here in this first week of qualifiers. And remember, Season 3 has a lot going for it. We're in the qualifier stages right now, and we're finding who is going to join the top 6 from Season 2 to become Season 3's roster. And once we have those 12 players, there's a Contenders Cup to look forward to. The top 3 from the Contenders Cup get to go to Tokyo, Japan. So,
and play for $120,000 freaking dollars, man.
$120,000. You know how many French fries that is?
That's way more French fries than you should ever eat. Don't do that.
Right. I would never spend. I wouldn't spend a penny on French fries.
It's Rune.
Perfect.
It's Rune.
All right, we get to start off with some Rune. Lovely.
Excellent.
So more players taking our direction and banning out swords, so we actually get to see the Rune deck here. Interesting that Dirt Rune specifically was banned last match, but I like to see it here. So talk to us about new variations of Dirt. Usually in new expansions, you like to kind of test out Dirt. What do you think is good about Dirt now? Do you think it's any better than it used to be?
Come gather round.
Yeah, actually I do, and it's because of the card that Eternity just drew. Carl is amazing, okay? If you have a turn 1 sigil, you get to play your Magic Illusionist, then the next turn on curve, you get a 2-3 and you get a sigil.
And you gain
That's
life. That's
really
not a small
and-
piece. Late in the game, it
No.
can help.
Yeah, it definitely it can help in the early game, especially if you're fighting against, aggro sword or, anything else that's aggressive. Gaining that 1 health can help put you out of range of being killed. But I'm incredibly happy to see Dirt Rune right now.
Before, you had the option of like Runic Guardian or Mage of Nightfall, like these kind of like could be defensive options, could be offensive options, but they consume a sigil. Now Rune has a sigil generator on that also gains life. And it's a 2-3. It's got a nice little body attached to it.
Yeah. I think this Magic Illusionist is going to be in play for a while.
Yeah. So one of the best things about Dirt now, especially with Carl and the addition of the new 1-drop sigil that has Earthright, draw a card, and basically get your play point back. It has a lot more filter than it used to. Those Magic Illusionists, if you actually get it in your opening hand, it's the best card to see in the entire deck. Will literally just sit there on repeat and just deal so much damage that you can literally just build a control deck around it like you see in Eternity's Hand. It's got Dance of Death, Mutagenic Bolt, Red Hot Ritual, Professor of Taboos, no other aggro cards at all.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't exactly know how good Mutagenic Bolt is going to be in this particular matchup, but, I mean, unless Bad ends up, for some reason flooding the board with stuff, but I don't know how good it's going to be in this particular matchup. However, we do see that Eternity is like, you know what? We're going all face. He used the burn to clear the board instead of going face with the burn, just to make sure that he didn't have to make it harder for him to trade into the Magic Illusionist.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but it kind of makes sense because you're sitting at 19. You know you're playing against Force. They already use DPM, so they already have a couple 0-cost fairies in hand. It makes it a lot harder for, as we see, for Roach decks to actually combo from 19 as opposed to something like 17 or 16 or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So basically just trying to mitigate.
Okay, now did we just see what we just saw? Because what we just saw was Bad deciding not to play one of the 0-costs and Evo into the Halo Golem and is about to take 6 to the face. Do we agree with that?
A lot of 6 to the face here. I don't think that against Burn Rune or like whatever you want to call it these days, against a deck that has a lot of burn in it, you can really afford to do that. So allowing that follower to stay in play, probably not the best of ideas, especially when you have an Evo point to give.
Now, I really like this play by Eternity. He played the Professor on a blank board. So I like this a lot because it's basically saying anything that you trade is, you're trading into my 6/5. You're not trading into this Professor,
Right.
because
and that means my next turn is going to be so much better.
Right. I love that play by him. I love it. Oh, he is trading into the Professor.
And we get to see the benefit of it. So I think that's just game, right? We've got Piercing Rune into Dance of Death into attack.
Yeah. Eternity played it perfectly.
Very well played.
Perfectly. And
I'm glad I chose him as my horse.
I feel you, man. Good job, Eternity. He played it right. I really like that empty play. He just played that matchup very solidly. He knew exactly what he was doing. And in that one turn that Bad did not play one of the 0-cost to Evo it into the 4/3, the Halo Golem, is actually what cost him
6 damage. And more than that, also the follow-up turn of another 6 damage. It literally was 12 damage for just not throwing away a fairy and an Evo point.
Yep. He still would have had the ability to get the stuff that he needed, but I think he was just a little too greedy.
Yeah, you gotta give yourself time. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Force is a really hard deck to play, probably one of the hardest decks in the game to play. And we're seeing how much it's taxing the players. Like, we haven't seen it win yet, and we haven't really seen the Force players kind of play out their game plans like you'd want to see them play out, right? So,
right.
Very interesting.
I agree. I would even argue to say, I would venture to say that Forest is probably the hardest deck, or most Forest decks. Aggro Force is pretty easy, but any of the Roach-specific, combo kills, that's actually really difficult. A lot of decision-making involved. a
More
lot
than you
of
would think. Like,
yeah,
do you
a lot of
play
micromanagement.
fairies here? Do you use your Evo point here? Do you use one of your bounce spells here? Like, which order do I want to do my spells in? We saw that matter in the last match we saw Forrest, right? Where he decided not to dance the death of Prime Dragon Keeper, and if he just ordered that first before the Fina, he probably would have won that game. So very small decisions, but in turn, they're game-winning or game-making decisions.
You know, a lot of micromanagement with Forrest. But we see Stormhaven from Eternity.
I like it. I
love it. I love it.
Birdkeeping
Okay.
Disciple making a comeback. Let's go.
Hey, you know, that card, okay, just to say, was never really bad. It was just kind of outclassed by other stuff. And I think right now is a great time for the card.
Yep. And we also get to see how much value these Spring Green protections are actually putting into play. After being bounced, drawing an extra card, being put back into play, increasing the power on board yet again. Like, just tons and tons and tons of value. Like, my goodness.
Now, this game is shaping up a little different than the last
A
one.
little different, yeah.
Yeah.
Decides not to play the second Spring Green protection. That's an interesting choice to me.
Yeah. I think, wouldn't it have been okay to play it? I mean, you had the one floating play point. You didn't really need the board space right now. So...
That, and you know your opponent's got Priest of the Cudgel. They're playing Haven.
Right.
So your board's going
Right.
to get cleared up anyway.
Right.
But yeah, you have plenty of board space. You're not trying to combo in the next 2 or 3 turns. So plus it draws you a card when it dies. So realistically, I think just losing out on a marginal amount of value. But again, those marginal amounts of value add up.
Yep. Now, I do want to say that one of the things I've been noticing with a lot of these decks that we've been seeing today, a lot of these decks have been playing pure Hearted Singer. A lot of them. I don't think I've seen a deck except for maybe the Forestless that aren't running that card in some numbers. So for those who don't know what that card does, it's a 3-play point 1/2 that it has Fanfare, draw a card, and Last Words, draw a card. So, I mean, you're getting tons of value, and it's a follower in that of itself. And to me, in Haven lists, it sort of kind of replaces Sacred Plate, along with Globe. Yeah, I don't even like looking at Sacred Plea right now anymore.
No, Sacred Plea just doesn't look as good as it used to, especially we just have better cards now. But yeah, Singer is good. I mean, Singer is a value card. Also Cassiopeia, great value card now. Kind of like Will of the Forest, costs 1 more, but you get a 3/3 at the end of it, which is way better than nothing. So
Yeah,
you'll definitely see it being replaced, Will of the Forest being replaced by Cassiopeia in most Forest decks. But yeah, Singer is just interesting. It's just really good value. You can play it like, basically it's just there. If your opponent doesn't really have like this like straight aggressive draw or like isn't doing anything crazy, you just play it out. You get a ton of value out of it.
Now we got a massive tempo turn for Eternity here. He could play his Garuda, pop the March Hares, and he's gonna have the 4/4, and he's gonna have the 4/5. He can Evo it to shoot face, trade it to the Cassiopeia, go face, have a bunch of power on board.
He should 100% do that.
Yeah,
I will
all
tell
the
you, as a
damage.
Forest player, when you go up against Tea Time into Garuda, you lose. Like, you literally can't win the game after that point unless you can combo, like, right now. The good news for Bad is, look at his hand. He's already got access to all 3 roaches and spells he can cast, and his opponent's at 13, and he has an Evo point. He's going to win this next turn.
Yeah. Let's hope he sees it.
No,
Okay, I
he
think
immediately sees it. He knows.
He's like, okay, I got him. I got him.
We got him, boys. This is what happens when you actually get chip damage in, like what we were talking about, Forrest getting this new early game plan, being able to just chip so much so that these early game roach combo turns actually are.
Yep. So, turn 7, he knew what he was doing. He planned his turns out appropriately. Game's over.
That's how you do it, right there.
Take notes, people.
Take notes.
Take notes.
That's right. He didn't play the first one maybe especially well, but this game he knew exactly what he was doing, played it to perfection, got there, even against a March Hare's Tea Time into Garuda play.
Yep. So if things had played out, if maybe Eternity had just a little bit more health.
If he had one more turn or, a little bit more health, that game would have been completely, flopped. Like, literally, we would not have seen Forrest win there, so.
Right. So we're going into, now they both have won 1. So we're going into the last game of this set. And, ooh, look at that.
pretty.
That is pretty. That's pretty. I like it.
I need to get the new dragon leader. I 100% that's happening. Need those Evo animations in my life. My God.
Yeah, that I didn't know that on this side, like he actually called the dragon. Like I didn't know that.
Unfreaking believable, man. Anyway, I'll stop talking about it. I'll stop gushing over it. Okay, so well, this looks like more like traditional ramp. We see the polyphonic roar, which is kind of a key.
Yeah, of course, as we know, traditional ramp dragon has a slight problem against Stormhaven decks. And by slight, I mean a very large problem against
especially with the
deck.
curve that Eternity has. I mean, he's got a Hollow Dogma next turn to pop the Beast Call. He's got a Bird Keeping Disciple for 4. He even has the late game Taurus in hand already, which means his mid game needs to shore up a little bit, but his early game's exactly what you want to see.
Yep. But we see Bad is he is ramping. He is ramping. So he definitely has, he could have rather some ways to deal with this. But he can't play Sybil yet because it's not. Ooh, okay. So Breath of the Salamander clearing that up. Like, get it out of here.
Basically has all the tools you'd want for Dragon. Early ramp, have the Sybil for the life gain plus the Evo next turn to go right back up to 20, and that'll project you right into Polyphonic Roar, which means Eternity is going to have to win through a very early Polyphonic Roar, usually for mid-range decks and tempo decks. Kind of a steep hill to climb.
It is a very steep hill to climb. I can tell you right now from experience that the last thing you want to see playing any variation of Haven is an early Polyphonic Roar. Okay? It's not what you want to be seeing. Ever.
No, especially when you're on the draw against Dragon. Dragon's ramped a ton and is able to play Polyphonic Roar that early. We're talking about right now turn 6 Polyphonic Roar with a board that has a Sybil on it already that has to be dealt with.
Yep. And again, unfortunately, this Polyphonic Roar is very good.
Ooh.
Well, no, I think you just played a Polyphonic Roar. I don't even think you look at that behind.
I think so too, yeah. Especially against Haven, where they have a ton of amulets, where you really, Haven has probably the best protection against Bahamut of all the classes. Especially Tempo Haven with the Divine Bird songs and Beast Call Arias and all that kind of stuff. So basically just doing what you said, playing out that Polyphonic Roar.
To make it worse, Bad has what was once the menace of the game, Grimnir in hand. So yeah. I can't imagine he doesn't Evo to go face here. Just push as much damage.
I don't think that was the correct Evo though, because now as we know,
Grimnir is just now. Yeah, Grimnir is gonna clean this up easily, no problem. If he had done it the other way, he could have at least forced an Evo, the last Evo, to trade into that bird, but he did it that way, spreading the stats around, which I guess protected it a little bit from Breath of the Salamander, but not from Grimnir.
Right, and you've already seen a Breath of the Salamander, so usually play to your odds, right? Like, what is he more likely to have, another Breath or a Grimnir? So
yeah,
just interesting small choices that lead to big game-changing, turns in the game.
Yep.
So are we thinking like Globe plus Garuda here? We thinking fill up the board?
I think that's your play. You have to do some damage. You have to be able to just fight through this right now. And let's say he would do 7 damage. So in a way, he could actually set up a lethal here. He could play the Globe plus Garuda. He could evolve the Garuda, trade into the ward, he would be hitting face for 6, would put him at 7. Next turn, he could play Taurus, evolve it, and that's game. In the event that no ward comes out.
So I think, that has to be the play.
Yep.
I think Eternity sees the line.
No! I mean, it kind of does the same thing.
This is the same thing. This is the same thing.
Yeah, I guess it does the same thing.
Oh, no! But he didn't go face.
No, he didn't.
That's okay, though. It's okay, though. It's okay. He decided to clear the entire board, so he's not taking any damage, essentially giving him an extra turn. Good thing he cleared that dragon, because he actually would have died if he didn't.
He actually would have died. Yeah, wow. Amazing.
So he
how
made
that
the right
checked out.
play.
Wow, he did make the right play. Wow.
Keep relying on
Okay,
you,
I
Dragon.
stand corrected, bruh.
I don't know if
Yes.
it's gonna matter much though, because like we said, polyphonic roar value. That's a 5/5 with Storm every single turn. Now with Zeus in the hand of Bad, I don't really know if Eternity can really muster up enough damage before next turn for it to even matter. Even if he can clear board again, Zeus coming down next turn is going to prevent all the damage to his face, and then Polyphonic Roar is just going to keep pumping those dragons out.
Yeah, and he has absolutely no answer to this polyphonic roar. This is why a Haven player never wants to see an early polyphonic roar. And Bad actually ramped very well this game.
Oh yeah.
So
turret 6 Polyphonic Roar. Yeah, absolutely
yeah,
good.
so you never want to see that ever, because now all of your decisions are just, but I don't want to die. Like,
Exactly. I can't play my game plan and keep forcing damage through. I actually also have to realize that I could just die at any moment.
Yep.
Nothing can get me
So
down.
he will, if he wants it, be able to push some damage here, but
I think he's
Again,
just going to go
Zeus-
safe front again.
Zeus just
I honestly
kind of,
would push face, yeah, and trade with the dragon. Perfect. So this is exactly the play I would have made. And this allows for
So-
Taurus lethal setup with any follower that remains in play. But Zeus,
kind
might
of
change that.
put a damper on that a bit.
he might not play Zeus though here. He might go with like a Breath of the Salamander turn. He might go with Sybil here. He's got options.
Well, Breath of the Salamander would just straight up take away the board. So he's definitely not playing Zeus. So that means he's playing Breath of the Salamander.
Yeah, could be
Or-
Sybil. Is Sybil, looks like.
Oh, okay, he's not playing Breath. He's just, okay, it looks like you're right. He is going to go in the Sybil route.
Just
Playing super defensive. He knows he has the win in hand. He just needs for his opponent not to kill a follower for one turn.
Mm-hmm.
ready to witness my
Well,
true strength?
I don't really know what Eternity can do here. His hand's not lending well to the idea of winning right now. He doesn't have any Garudas, no way of getting any kind of burst, other than
Yeah,
maybe the Taurus. But
Yeah.
I mean, the
Taurus
Taurus
comes down, kills Sybil, and then Bad wins.
And
I think that's kind of how.
Turn to
Yeah,
dust.
because then there's 15 damage.
Yep.
You know.
Old dragon, new dragon, plus the god of thunder himself.
Yep. And so much for the horse, man. Sorry, Eternity.
No, but yay, Bad.
Indeed. They both played, I think they did a very good job.
Yeah, they played this
and it's-
matchup very well.
It's just unfortunate that early polyphonic roar was set the tone for the game.
Bad ends up taking the win, and polyphonic roar ramp is something that came to be really powerful. Especially towards the later stages. It's interesting when we think about playing Haven, right? Which is, I don't know if it's nearly as dominant as it was in the last expansion, as well as not really playing the Ether form of Haven. What do you guys think about the particular deck that Eternity brought in terms of Havencraft, and do you think it has a place in this kind of grueling tournament format, or do you think it's not quite as consistent or powerful enough to push through?
Actually, I
think
think
it's
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say, I think it's good. Like, we had the same thought immediately. I think it's good. The reason why you don't see a lot of players playing it is because it's not as consistent as the other aggro decks. The reason I say that is because it takes a lot of right things to happen for your amulets to pop on the appropriate turns, for you to get the correct damage, like things that you need over the course of the game. Like we saw at the end of the game, he was just stuck with a bunch of amulets in hand, not really a lot of damage positive plays. So it's really hard to just eke out that last bit if your early bit isn't really good. But it has the thing where its early bit can be the most explosive thing in the game, just because of all the amulets popping early, like with the backed up Tin Soldier into Garuda, all that kind of stuff. Like, does a lot more than most decks do. But if it doesn't get those draws coupled with a bunch of amulets at the end, it loses a lot of its consistency and a lot of the good things that it can do.
So, unfortunately, met up against one of its worst matchups and got polyphonic roared. And Eternity is out of the tournament. Let's take a look at the bracket and get an update. Eternity is out. Bad will move on, and so we're going to watch Unearth versus Thundy and see who will face off against Bad. And only a few matches left. We've got 4 matches left here. Unearth versus Thundy. and then Bad versus the winner of that, and then Das V versus the winner of that match, and then the grand finals, and we'll know who the second player to move on to Season 3 is going to be for this first week in Europe. And it's been quite an interesting day. I think we've seen a pretty decent amount of decks here. We got to see a little bit of Rune, a little bit of Forest, a little bit of Haven, and Sword really, I think, kind of showing off kind of a lot of its strengths this expansion, which is great because I feel like Sword has been especially pigeonholed into only one kind of archetype for a long time. I guess Froggy Sword was the bigger thing.
It's really interesting not to see any Shadow. Like, we saw a Shadow deck, you know what I mean? Like, it's been so dominant for so long, and, like, just not a lot of players bringing it anymore. And even though it could just be one of the best decks you could bring.
Exactly.
So, I'm kind of looking forward to the next match in the lower bracket. We've already seen a few eliminations here, but very curious to see what decks these other players are fielding and if there's any more flavor in there. What do you guys think about so far? I mean, in the European Shadowverse Open here so far, we haven't seen any of the older players here. Do you think that the new decks and the new expansions takes a little more time for these players to kind of learn and think up? What do you think is a slower start here for these players, and do you feel confidence if there's any of them that you think will return and make it through the qualifiers?
Well, right now, the meta game is, as we like to say, still shaping up. It's still very aggressive and it's than other. I think one of the reasons we may not be seeing the older players is simply because they haven't solved the meta game yet. Like before, the meta game was solved, so we knew, the people who we expected to make it to certain places, they did because they had solved it. Right now, it's not completely solved. PDK is still incredibly powerful, and as is Aggro Sword, so it's more like, can I really find a deck that beats both of these? And that's incredibly difficult to do.
Exactly. It's not just player skill that matters right now. It's a deck building skill. It's like new format knowledge and player skill. So like maybe some of these older players, like I said, have that play skill. They have the knowledge once the format's solved. But in this new beginning stages, it's tumultuous out there. It's rough in these streets.
And the European, it's rough in these streets. The European players as well. There's a lot of kind of new names still coming up, right? Last season was the first season that Europe was included. Now there's still a lot of new names that are making themselves known. It's not quite as developed as the North American scene in terms of these players consistently coming back again and again and again and competing in, at least in the Shadowverse Open. So we have the next game ready to go and we're about to jump into it. So let's see who is the next one to move on. We've still got this lowers round, and then we've got the final, I guess, 4 players, and then 3, and then we're gonna go down to 2. So the tournament is wrapping up. Vials are on the line, as well as invitational spots, and of course, those who lose this week are able to participate next week. So there's still opportunities, 3 qualifiers in this time period to decide who can have a chance at the World Grand Prix in Season 3. So I wonder what deck Uni is going to field here, or Unner is going to field. And I think there's a lot of variation that could happen, and we see Rune again. What do you guys think are the current popular Rune decks to run? What would you guys be utilizing if you were to play Rune in a tournament in this scenario?
Definitely Dirt Rune.
Yeah. I think it's the only Rune deck that makes sense. Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is an aggro meta. You don't want to play D-Shift.
Right. That's basically saying, hey man, I'm fine with not having answers for the.
I'm fine with taking big juicy L's to the face.
Right. Right. But we can see that Thundy actually has a very nice hand against Aggro Sword. He's got for warding off damage, literally. And
you don't see Scrap Iron Smelter very often in these dirt lists anymore. So, like, very interesting choice in this aggro meta.
Well, I think it's very good in the aggro meta. And now we're seeing the new sigil, Starseer's Telescope, where it has Earthright, draw a card, so it uses one of your sigils, it recovers a play point. So that means that you basically are playing it for free if you have a sigil, and you're getting to cycle the card.
Free filters. It's amazing card for dirt.
Now, I will say that in my experience with this card, it's both a positive and a negative. It does leave you sigil negative, or I guess technically sigil neutral, but you're not you're not really gaining a sigil. So that kind of hurts when you have cards like Magic Illusionist or even
And
the cards.
concentration that he's got in his hand, yeah.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit when you have those cards, I think. So, but I do think that the card is a very good card. And Ephemera coming down doing tons of damage to the face.
Might not have been an all-star before, but definitely showing how good it is now.
Yeah.
With these new sword decks, just with the amount of Storm, the amount of small followers you can play that are good, like, I think FMR is actually good now. Before I didn't think she was very good, now I think she's actually good.
Oh yeah, you were the biggest hater.
I thought it was terrible, and honestly she was. Honestly, she was not very good.
At the time. At the time she was terrible. I can't argue that. Especially in the list that people were playing her in, but that's a whole other matter. He opts not to play the Levy here, though, and plays the Halo Golem instead. I kind of like this. It presents a bigger threat that maybe Hunter may think that he needs to tackle.
Also gives Thundy the option of being able to play the Concentrate next turn with the Levy.
That's
Better
true.
on play point.
But the thing is, if he does that, he won't be able to play Crimson Sorcery to help clear the board. So I don't know if he really would want to do that.
Defensive Evo here, interesting.
I don't know about a defensive Evo here. I think that it would have been better to just...
Yeah, just jam face. You got the Alwedas. You don't have any cards left. Can you really afford to be trading a board against a board trade deck? It's interesting.
Yeah.
That one single Evo might cost Hunter the game if he doesn't draw into just more explosive stuff here. Because we see Master Mage Levy just sitting in hand for Thundy now.
Yeah. Well, that's a card.
Okay. I actually would have much rather seen Albert come out this turn because it plays around Master Mage Levy a little bit better.
I don't think he cares. I think he's like, you know what, man? Your face, bro.
Face with everything. I would face with Ephemera here too because of Master Mage Levy. No reason not to. You've got Albert in hand.
Unfortunately, though, he can't clear board and heal for one in the same turn.
Right.
So it's just looking pretty over right now. I guess that defense. Yeah, sword, man. You just feel terrible. Concentrate sitting in your hand doing absolutely nothing. Albert, about to summon the sky. Oh my goodness.
Just in case.
Just in case.
I said
hitting him for 3 when it's health for 3.
But yeah, definitely drew more than enough explosion off the top here.
Yeah, hitting someone in the face for 3 when they're at 3, that's not good enough. He needs to do the 2 damage.
One of these days, okay, so here's a real question for you, Aya. I'm gonna give you one of these thinkers here. Do you think that Albert Levin Saber will ever be nerfed?
That's a hard one, man. Okay, I'm gonna say a very unpopular thing. I don't think it needs to be nerfed.
Okay, tell me why.
The thing is that I feel like, even though I absolutely detest being killed by Albert.
Yeah, I think we all do.
I think that Albert, to me, is fair enough that it doesn't require a nerf. It's just Storm as a mechanic is just really powerful. I mean, being able to come out and immediately hit someone in the face is really strong in general. So Albert is essentially the embodiment of what that mechanic is. And to be completely honest, I don't know what nerf you could possibly make that would make Albert that would change anything in that regard.
That's true, because the most potent effect that he has is just being a 5 play point 3 power storm card.
Exactly. That
let
he
alone,
just happens
let alone his late game.
Right. Yeah, he just happens to have it enhanced like that. But if you look at the way Sword is constructed, I don't really think that you really could do something to nerf Albert, in my opinion.
I
again,
hope chat right now is going nerf Albert like crazy.
Yeah, I hope they disagree with me, but I don't think it needs.
To be honest, I think you're right, and it's a really hard card to balance, right? Because like on one hand, you see it coming, you know it exists, it's ever present, and you can play around it essentially. Like it's a very straightforward card. on the back end, a lot of times you can't really play around it because it has Storm, right? It's just a game-ending card. So it's a very, very interesting card. I don't know. That was just a conversation starter while we were waiting. But getting into this matchup, I feel like Dirt has a very positive game plan against Forest. Forest has to do a lot of work against Dirt.
Oh, definitely. And like Forest doesn't have really good answers to Magic Illusionist. So Magic Illusionist is gonna put in a ton of work. Unless
you want to throw away a Roach, he could technically almost kill it this turn.
He could break the sigil, but that seems terrible, right?
That seems awful. So you don't do that.
Oh man.
Okay.
Don't do that line
take
at
some
all.
damage off the board. Great draw. What a Brambles good draw here.
That was a good draw. That was a very good draw. Now, Wood of Brambles
basically gives him all the options.
Now, Wood of Brambles is actually the card that can help Forest against Magic Illusion.
Right. It helps your 1/1s trade up so that you can consistently just clear it off the board. Now, he does have to wait a little while, and he might opt for the Elven Princess Mage next turn. But in order to set up a good board here, I think that Wood of Brambles is a good play. Especially because it's... Highest favorite thing in the game, by the way, guys. 0 psychological damage, favorite thing. I think he should go for Wood of Brambles this turn, though, because of... You get to put out all of your small followers before a Master Mage Levi turn happens. So it looks like he's opting for the EPM to just go for straight combo. He does have most of the combo pieces in hand, so I can't hate on him for doing it. He's got the Fina next turn.
Ooh.
I don't know about playing that. He didn't have enough cards in his hand to really justify that.
Yeah, that seems a little questionable.
No, I guess he's right, because next turn he's going to Fina put the 0 cost, and at the beginning of his next turn he's going to draw a card off of the Spring Green protection. So I didn't take into account the amulet.
Oh, right. Okay, you're right. That's a thing.
Negative magic.
But
Yeah,
this...
you actually have like mini Sacred Pleas in Forest now, man.
Yeah, that's disgusting, dude.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Like, literally vomit-worthy. It saddens me to the core. Okay? It saddens me to the core.
It might actually be better than Sacred Plea because it just does stuff. Whereas Sacred Plea doesn't.
Yeah, it does way more than Sacred Plea ever did. So yes, it definitely is better than Sacred Plea. I don't think that there could be a possible argument otherwise.
Interesting. So if Wood of Brambles is the play this turn, I'm not sure why he played the 0 cost. I guess he just sees an opportunity to get the Illusionist and all the sigils out of play and reset his Spring Green protection, so he's just gonna take it. I don't hate this play either. So he's going away from his combo for a little bit.
Well, he can definitely take out this Magic Illusionist, which he definitely should, 100%.
So basically just completely altering his line of play here from going straight combo into, I need to play a little bit of a defensive game here.
Well, Wood of Brambles gives Forest that ability to play the trade game. Like before, it couldn't really trade as well. Now you can trade really well with it. I mean, even though it didn't matter in that scenario, but in general, like Wood of Brambles really adds an extra.
Well, not only
plus
that,
it gives you fairy.
It gives you fairies, which is awesome. Like a lot of times Forest struggled in the defensive end because you'd have to play the fairies that generated off of Fairy Circle or something like that, use those to Evo and trade, and then you don't have those fairies left in your hand. Wood of Brambles helps you trade more efficiently and gives you fairies on top of also being able to play Fairy Circle and things like that. So basically just a lot more generation in the deck.
Yeah, because Forest definitely needed more fairy generation, man. It didn't have enough.
Never enough, man. Never enough.
Okay, so he's going to trade into this. Of course, that's the only thing you really can do. He doesn't really want to take any extraneous damage. You never want to take any extraneous damage when you're fighting Forest.
Yep. So I think this is just going to be like a tutor turn. He might even play some fairies and Fairy Circle here. No reason to save all those cards.
Yeah, that's way too many fairies. But we see that there's...
Yeah.
Master Mage.
That's right. Master Mage Levy will clean this board up. And I think that will finally prompt the Fina to be played. There's only one Roach left in the deck, so he doesn't necessarily need to go for the Fina 0 cost, but it will speed up his combo by a little bit. But it will use his Evo points, so
yeah,
things to consider.
Now, let me ask you this:
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel about Mutagenic Bolt?
Right here,
No, in general.
I think
Like
it's
right
good.
in the meta.
I think it's still necessary. If you're playing against Aggro Sword, it feels like a big brick. But against a lot of other decks, especially like PDK, it can feel really good. Especially if you set up the right boards where like they fill up their entire board with PDKs, and then you play this.
Ooh, man, that feels awful.
Oh wow.
That feels awful. Oh man, not what you want to see.
Did that set up a lethal for Unner though? Like the 3 extra damage that just happened, because he can jam all of these rats into
I
the
think it did.
Wisp.
Yeah, I think he just gave him lethal.
Let's see. So we've got 0. He can play 2 spells before just 2 roaches, or he can play 1 spell before triple roach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's lethal. I think he would need 2 spells to cast before 3 roaches to have lethal this turn. So I think he needs 1 more turn. Roach math,
Sorry,
people.
doing the math. Sorry. Okay.
I think he's counting too. I think he's a turn off.
Beautiful, powerful, and cute to boot.
Well, we know that Thundy is about to lose this Calamitous Curse,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's gonna
I'll blow you away.
100% bad.
I think the Mutagenic Bolt there is kind of like a double-edged sword, right? Because it's great for basically propelling your game plan. Terrible because it also accelerates your opponent's game plan with Roach combo. It makes their combo a lot easier. So I think this is the last turn Thundy has, unless he can do something to just win the game.
He can't do 8 damage in the turn.
I
There's
don't
no
think
card.
that it can. Yeah.
There's no configuration of cards that allows him to do 8 damage in a turn. I mean, I guess if somehow he miraculously drew double Piercing Rune, but he still can't do that because he doesn't have any Evo points. He can't reduce the cost, and he can't play Heligold.
The name's
So, and that would be 7 days. So he doesn't. It is no configuration of cards that he has that will allow him to do it.
Right. So, but he doesn't have the Evo point now, but he does have access to all 3 roaches. So,
Yeah.
he'll be able to play 1, 2, 3, 4 spells before 3 roaches, which is
Ooh,
5, 6, 7.
Gimme.
Looks
Which
like
is
Honor
plenty
is.
of damage.
Yeah, Honor is in the driver's seat. He knows what's up. He sees the signs. GG.
Yep. And honestly, taking the extra 3 damage that he did set him up for this lethal. He could have had more time.
Yeah.
He could have
Yep.
just played the Calamitous Curse.
He actually would have had. Well, no, he couldn't have played the Calamitous Curse because he drew that. He drew the Calamitous Curse. When the sigil popped, I think.
Oh,
So he
okay.
didn't actually
Okay.
have it in hand.
see.
Yeah.
I see.
So
Okay.
that's why I was like, oh, that feels bad, man.
There it is. Honor takes the win, and yeah, that Calamitous Curse timing. If only it had flip-flopped a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about Forest Craft playing out 0-drop tokens and kind of like going for maybe even some play that's more tempo-oriented rather than utilizing it for combo pieces?
It's literally the hardest thing to read because every single person that's behind Forest plays it their own way. Forest is a very like every single resource matters, but you have to know what your specific game plan is. You can literally play Roach Forest a million different ways and it's going to look different to every single player, but as long as you follow what you think you're doing and it is an executable game plan, then you can win with it. It's really hard to know what's behind every single Forest player's mindset. But playing for tempo on specific turns means I want to do XYZ in the next 3 turns. Playing none here means this is what I want to do for the next few turns. So realistically, it's always good and it's always bad. It's really hard to tell.
Well, let's take a look at the new situation here. Thundy eliminated, and Honor will move on. And so that's going to mean our lower semifinals is going to be Bad versus Honor. And whoever wins that is going to face off against Dasvi and become the second Season 3 participant in the European region. And then we have the grand finals between Best Marmot and whoever came out through the lower finals, whether it's Dasvi, Bad, or Honor. So just a few more matches left in the tournament. But before we get to that, there's a few exciting things that we want to talk about after we come back from a little bit of a break, but a lot of exciting things that are happening in the Shadowverse realm there. But make sure you guys go to shadowverse.nge.io and sign up to participate in the tournament next week and the week after. This is going to be your only chance to get on the train to get onto the World Grand Prix. So if you want any chance to be flown out to Tokyo, be there for a few days, compete in a tournament that's going to give you a prize pool of 120,000 US dollars, and the prize breakdown has not really been mentioned, but you can find that on the World Grand Prix website, which you can also find on shadowverse.nge.io. But as long as you even just qualify for the World Grand Prix, you're in the money. You get paid.
And you get to go to Japan.
Yep.
Right. Come on.
Yep.
Come on, people.
Yep. Yep. So, World Grand Prix is on the line. Make sure you guys are participating. This is not your last chance. Next week, there's another tournament. The week after, there's another tournament. There's Europe. Tomorrow is going to be North America, so both of those are going to be happening. Shadowverse.ng.io. Make sure you sign up. So, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, more exciting announcements for what's happening in the Shadowverse scene. So, stay tuned. We'll be right back. It's news time. We have time for news now.
News.
Sweet.
Yeah.
news.
Sweet.
There's so many things that are happening in Shadowverse. I mean, in Season 1 and Season 2 it was kind of very offhand, but we're taking our time now during each break to talk about some news items and talk about what's going on in the Shadowverse world and make sure that there's always a consistent place for all of these new Shadowverse events to be featured and talked about. So, let's start with the first item on the dock. It's going to be in Singapore, in Southeast Asia. There's an event going on, a Shadowverse event, and it's going to be really exciting. The first LAN tournament here, official tournament in Southeast Asia. The Southeast Asia Majors, typically a fighting game tournament that features a whole bunch of different titles, is starting their mobile division here, and Shadowverse is going to be one of those tournaments. Southeast Asia Major Mobile, and the SEA Open, 14th and 15th of October in Singapore, with a total prize pool of $5,000 and the winner will be flown to Japan to watch the Raid Shadowverse World Grand Prix in December. So you can join us in Tokyo as my voice cracks. And it's going to be really fun. The registration is open now. BeastAPAC.com is the website you need to go to find more information about that. But it's super cool. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening there. Managed Surge's Bjorn is helping host the event, so really cool there. And registration ends on Monday, so make sure you guys, if you want to participate, do that very soon. And there's going to be a Wizardess of Oz cosplayer there. Super cool. I love the Wizardess of Oz costume. And there's going to be a Shadowverse booth there with the new Starforged Legends promotion cards there. That's going to be the first time we see it exclusive to the Southeast Asia major event. And hopefully those Starforged Legends cards come to some other events. But that's over in Asia. Let's come back over to the United States here. TwitchCon is going to be happening at the end of October, and a lot of exciting stuff is going to be happening there. But the big thing is the Shadowverse Streamer Showdown. That means that streamers such as Kriparian, Reynad, Tize, Hafu, Justin Wong, and Eloise are going to be here playing some Shadowverse, having a bunch of fun on stage. There's going to be more details about all the things that Shadowverse is going to be doing at TwitchCon. So if you guys are in Long Beach, California, definitely come down and check this out. This particular Streamer Showdown is going to happen on October 21st, 12:30 p.m. PST. The Twitch URL is right there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Shadowverse is a gold sponsor of TwitchCon, so there's going to be a lot of cool Shadowverse stuff happening there. Definitely make your way out, and we'd love to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for the event. And I can't wait to watch all these cool streamers play the game. So, more stuff. We've talked about it a lot, but the World Grand Prix is on the way. And at the end of the year, of course, that's December 23rd and 24th, right before Christmas, a fantastic Christmas Eve of Shadowverse, is going to be the World Grand Prix. As Exodium has so eloquently stated, $120,000 on the line here. A lot of invitational spots, 3 for Europe, 3 for America, 3 for Korea and Taiwan, and then Japan has 12 for a total of 24 spots, and we are deciding who those 3 are going to be right now in our qualifier process. Over the course of the next 4 weeks, we're going to know who those are for Europe and North America. Oh my god, things are coming up from my body. Oh my goodness. I think it's about over. But the World Grand Prix is definitely a thing that you guys should be looking out for. Very exciting Shadowverse action. And the last item of news, going back over the ocean, PAX Australia is a thing that's happening, and Shadowverse is a thing that's happening at PAX Australia. So if you are in that oceanic region, if you're from New Zealand, if you're in Australia, if you happen to be in one of the islands nearby, or if you're just sailing a ship and you're going by Australia, then make sure you check out PAX, because Shadowverse is going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I believe Managed Surge Red. I like how you guys are rowing. I like how we're all rowing a boat. We're all rowing a boat across the ocean.
Hey, you put it out there, man. You put it out there.
You did.
Yeah. Fight the power. Row, fight the power. What is it? We're getting sidetracked. But PAX Australia is going to be really fun. So definitely support the Oceanic community out there by attending and having a lot of fun playing Shadowverse all over the world. It's happening. The global experience. So.
And live tournaments.
Yes. Live tournaments are happening. Both in
Live
Tokyo,
tournaments.
Singapore. It's coming. We're getting to that point. So. we are about to jump back into our tournament. That's all the news segments that we have. Lots of exciting stuff, and we're going to talk about it more and more as the shows continue. And, of course, on Twitter, we're going to talk about it more. But as we head back into this tournament, let's get a recap about what the tournament is looking like and where people stand. A lot of players have been eliminated. We've played a whole day of Shadowverse here, broadcasted only a portion of it, but Best Marmot sits in the grand finals already in Season 3. Now it's just to be decided whether Best Marmot will be first place or second place, and the player to challenge him could either be Bad and Unner or Dasvi. One of these players will face Best Marmot in the grand finals. We'll see who it is. So the next match that's teed up here is Bad versus Honor. So we've seen all their decks so far. What do you guys think now that Eternity is out? I know Eternity was a player that Exodium was kind of rooting for, but Eternity got kicked out of this tournament. As we said, he's already taken all his wins, and now he's away. I mean, oh my god! The finger person kick. Wow. That's great.
Get out of here!
We're creating so many. Maybe that's going to become the universal Shadowverse, like.
Yeah. Get out of here!
Get out of here. But now that Eternity is out, after looking at all these decks, who do you think has the best shot against Best Marmot here to possibly take first place? Do you guys have any ideas? Is there any particular deck that sticks out?
I wouldn't say there's any particular deck that sits out, but Bad, as long as he can keep his game face on, I think he's got a really good shot. After beating Eternity the way that he did, I feel like he's now my new horse. He beat my old horse, he's the new one.
There can only be one. That's like some level of Highlander.
Yeah.
The power gets passed down to the next.
That's right.
I'm excited to see this just because I want to see more kind of deck interaction for Starforged Legends, right? All I've been doing is net decking and kind of just, copying a lot of other players, but I want to see them compete and play at the highest level and see what ends up coming up of that.
Aya, who's your horse now? You got to pick one.
It's still Best Marmot, man.
Okay. All right.
It's still him. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed.
This is the way that Aya Senpai operates. He picks the highest statistical possible winner.
Yes!
And he shuns the lowest statistical possible. There's no 100%. Heart. He voted against Forest. There's no heart.
Hey. I rooted for Eternity. I just didn't. It wasn't my horse. That was Exo's horse.
True. Yeah. I mean, I could just pick people that are in the finals already too, but
Yeah.
No, I gave valid reasons as to why I picked him.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
He's on the winning side of the
finals. Excuses are excuses, though. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Hey. All right.
We're giving him a lot of heat, but it makes a lot of sense. I do think Best Marmot is probably best positioned to take the tournament. His decks are solid. He's in a very good numerical advantage just based on the tournament format. But we're about to jump into the game. Let's see. Honor versus Bad. Who will move on? And I wonder what decks they're going to field first. I can't remember. Was the Karabos deck knocked out already?
Yeah. What?
Yes.
Or was that Dasvi?
Unless Dasvi lost.
Yeah.
It could have been Dasvi's deck.
The Karabos deck definitely lost.
Yeah, I know it lost the match, but I'm not sure if it's eliminated. But I'd love to see that because we talked a little bit about Aggro Blood and Aggro Sword as well, and kind of the two aggro decks that you would particularly run here. So I'd love to see a little more interaction. Though Karabos, I guess, can be taken as a little bit more mid-range, but I don't think we're going to see it here. Just interesting to think about as the tournament moves forward. And I think kind of, especially since the expansion is so new, seeing all these decks play out and interact with each other is kind of always refreshing. But we'll see. Aya Senpai, if it's not Best Marmot, who do you think the second player in your lineup is going to be?
I'm going to go with Das. I'm
Okay.
going to go with Das. I just want to point out one thing. Does anybody else feel like they're mispronouncing all of these names?
Yep.
Maybe. Bad, Dasvi, Thundi, it could be Thund 3, I don't know, man.
The only one we got right is Eternity, okay? I think the rest of we're butchering these names and we apologize.
Yeah, we're sorry.
Oh, it's Saber versus Arisa, a matchup that I never thought I would ever see.
Alright,
That's a scary looking matchup.
It does, isn't it though?
You're not supposed to bring swords to a little girl fight. Come on.
What?
Hey, she's bow and arrow. I mean,
Yeah, bow and arrow's fine. right? Because like it could be, I don't know. Sword seems dangerous. Bow and arrows, meh, you can miss. Terrible,
Yeah,
terrible. Anyway, let's move past that. Let's move past this. Okay.
Okay.
So PDK versus Forest, who do you think has the edge in this matchup?
I think that this comes down to ramp. Okay, if Unner gets enough ramp, then I feel as if he could just blow this matchup out of the water. He's got 2 Fortes in hand already, so he can just storm him down. If he somehow can manage to keep chip damage off of him, I think that he could have a very good chance of winning this matchup.
Especially now, like Forte kind of unassuming, can be dealt with by Forest with multiple different cards. However, they don't have a lot of those cards. Like Airbound Barrage is probably the easiest, and there is Dance of Death and things like that, or Double Sylvan Justice or something like that. But if Fortes come down early enough, and they just go back to back, like sometimes Forest can just lose to that.
Yeah.
So, as Unner's hand doesn't look great because he doesn't really have ramp and he has Fortes and stuff, but like these Matildas and Fire Lizards doing a lot of work, getting him a little bit closer to that, and then he's gonna be able to play Sybil next turn, or ramp, and then go right into the Forte action. So he's got a nice little game plan here.
Now, I want to just point out one thing. I remember during our card review when we were talking about Matilda, and you were like, I will never play this card. This card is terrible. I
didn't know Prime Dragon Keeper was going to be good, okay? Jeez, man.
Hey, you guys hold Forest over me, so I get something.
Okay. If anything, hold Prime Dragon Keeper over my head, right? Because, like, I didn't think that card was going to be very good, and I was completely wrong.
Yeah, I think everyone was wrong on Prime Dragon Keeper. I mean, maybe a few people were like, yeah, it's going to be really good, but for the most part, I think everyone was wrong about that card. No one saw it coming.
It looks super unassuming, but, like, in practice, it's just crazy good.
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy good. So, yeah, now we see the option between Sybil. He could Fire Lizard plus Ayala. Looks like that's what he's going for. Okay. And that also ramped him.
Yeah, this will get him into PDK / Sybil being able to heal, stuff like that if he wants it. He will also be able to start jamming Fortes next turn if he wants that too.
Using one of the Evos means he won't have Evos for both Fortes, but a lot of times it doesn't matter. Like one Evoed Forte into a non-Evo Forte back-to-back if the first one lives is usually good enough.
Yeah, it generally is.
Yep.
But Fina coming down, so I don't imagine he's going to play Forte here. Again, you don't want to take 5 to the face when you're fighting.
Especially when an Airbound Barrage is a card, right? So like you could just jam and hope, but I don't think that's what you want to do. Unner agrees.
So now, being that you're a former competitive player, I'd like to ask you a serious question.
Sure.
What lineup would you bring to Season 3 of NGE?
If it was first week just like this and play, like I know it's kind of weird to say or easy to say or cliche to say, but I would have brought the same lineup that that Best Marmont did. I would have brought Shadow because I really like Shadow. I think Mid Shadow is still one of the best decks in the game. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think PDK is super consistent, and I think that Aggro Sword is the best deck right now. So the only consideration would be Shadow might have gotten swapped out for Forest, but in my testing so far, Forest isn't as consistent as I'd want it to be for a tournament environment. For ladder, it's fun and it can win a lot of matchups, but in a tournament environment right now, sometimes it's just not fast enough. Like PDK is super fast, Aggro Sword is super fast. It's really hard to keep pace when you're trying to combo.
Right.
So yeah, I think I would have brought a very similar lineup. Maybe not the same card choices or the same exact deck archetypes, but I think those 3 classes is what I would have brought.
Seems good. So we see that Unner could actually start hitting bad with some really heavy pressure. He can play Dragoon Scyther, and he can play this Forte, and that's 7 damage right to the face.
And as long as he thinks there's no lethal possibility next turn, he's got Zeus to follow it up with. So very strong plays.
Yes. Now, is there any consideration to trade here?
I don't think you need to, but you don't also like have to get the 2 damage. So it's realistically just player preference here. You know that there's a 0 cost card and it's going into turn 7, but you're still at 20. And it doesn't really matter the damage because you have Zeus followed by Forte. You've got backup Prime Dragon Keepers. He decides to go face. This is a little bit riskier of a play. And again, I think that I guess everything I just said boils down to he probably should have just traded because he doesn't need the damage. But I don't think it's going to matter much given what we see in Bad's hand.
Right. Well, you certainly never want to leave Dragon with any available damage on board. Unfortunately, as we already know, Dragon has a plethora of Storm options: Dragoon Scyther, Forte, Zeus, Genesis Dragon. I've even seen builds running Maelstrom Dragon.
Oh yeah, Maelstrom Dragon
Ifa.
fits really nicely in PDK. Ifa can be played. Yeah, they're all relevant options. PDK is a huge toolbox of things that you can just throw into a deck. You don't have to play any one variation of it.
Yeah, that's actually why I really like the card, and I pray they leave it alone. Leave it alone. Don't mess with it. Just let it be what it is.
There are plenty of decks that can kill it. I mean, it is basically just a board-centric deck that has a few Storm options. If you have board clears and wards, like, you can do very well against it. I know I have. I built a PDK deck that was built to beat the mirror, and it does very well because of a very unassuming card that nobody plays anymore in Rahab. Rahab is an amazing card.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And people don't play it right now. I think they're missing out. I think you should be playing it in PDK, and I think you should be playing it on all forms of Dragon right now because it's just a very solid card.
Well, it's good against this highly aggressive meta, right?
Yes.
Because we have Aggro Blood that's still around. Don't think it's gone. So Aggro Sword, that's probably not going anywhere for a little bit. Although I do believe that it will fizzle out at some point.
Well, Rahab has a key health total as well. Even if you play it against a PDK board, it has 5 toughness. So even a fresh PDK followed by 2 followers can't take it out. And then, followed up by a Forte or whatever. It's just a good blocking card.
And that Dance of Death couldn't have been a better time to draw that.
Yep. That was literally the perfect card. And that actually can set Bad up to win this game now, whereas before he didn't have that option. So great draw.
Well, Unner does have the ability to, or rather he could have, if he had drawn in, say, an Ivory Dragon, he could have won the game.
Just won the game. Yep.
Yeah.
Now I think Oracle into hopefully you draw a 3 or less drop is the best play.
Well, he got one. Definitely. So you can jam the PDK or both PDKs, sorry. And he can play the drop, which will clear the Cassiopeia. But yeah,
Bad has full combo coming next turn. Now that he's dealt with the Zeus. Yep.
So, oh well.
So as we see, Bad has Roach. Roach combos are happening more and more often now. Like I said, the deck's a lot more consistent than it used to be. Now, not to say that it's the most consistent forest deck that's ever been made, but it's a lot more consistent than it used to be.
Exactly what I want.
Care to touch?
Oh man. I just want to say that when your opponent has 2 PDKs out, you just kind of feel bad. Because you're like, I can't attack these. And who would have thought that not being able to attack something would actually be this painful, right?
Right. Well, before it was on Fortes and, Ifas that have no toughness. Now you're putting it on cards that have 5 toughness, Evo to 7 toughness. Like, just... Yeah. That's the part that actually was the flip-flop for me. So I thought the card was fine. What I didn't really actually put together was 5 toughness plus can't be attacked. That's what makes the card really good. Yes, the other abilities are nice, but the fact that it can't really die easily is the really good part about the card, and I just for whatever reason overlooked it when the set first got released.
Again, I think we just kind of look at 1/5 or 3.
Right.
And Dragon.
Like, why do you even need to play that card? And honestly, as the metagame shapes up, it might just not be the right choice. Like, regular Ramp Dragon will roll over it more often than not, and things like that. So if the metagame shifts to being a lot less aggressive, more mid-rangey, more controlish, Prime Dragon Keeper is going to get kicked out of the meta. You know what I mean? So it really just depends how the ebb and flow goes.
Well, right now, I would say that PDK is the defining deck. One of the
Absolutely.
2. Of course, the other being Soul. Those are the defining
Defining
decks. Ooh, we're about to see some Control Blood.
Baby.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a happy guy. Give me the Control Blood. Let's go. Give me 20+ turn games. That's what I want to see.
So funny thing is, Arthur, before the stream started, talked to us. Rainy, for those of you who don't know his name, sorry. Talked about Control Blood being really good against PDK, but we countered with Old Dragon with Fortes and Genesis Dragons. Just Old Storm Dragon used to be very good against Control Blood because it's just really hard to deal with that amount of damage. And that basically, PDK gave Dragon an option to play this Storm Dragon game again, whereas it hasn't had the option in a long time. So where you would think that Control Blood just runs over this deck, it doesn't really in practice. So it's kind of an even matchup. It's 50-50. It really just depends on how many Fortes / Zeuses / however many Storm cards that the PDK deck can draw.
Yeah, one of the things that I've found in playing this particular matchup is that it really comes down to your tech choices. Like, you don't want to really bog down Control Blood with, like, a bunch of wards. I mean, there are some wards you could play, but you don't want to really bog it down with a bunch of wards because that means you're not being proactive. And one of the things that the deck absolutely needs is proactive plays. So, wow, he's running Dire Bond and Buffalo?
And Blood Moon. He's got all of the little tricks in the early game.
Okay, anyway, as I was saying, you want to try to be as proactive as you can, and especially with the Blood Moon variation, because you're giving up your turn 3 for potential really strong cards on 4. You really need things to do, especially against this Dragon deck, because we do know that there are Storm cards. And as historically, Control Blood just has a very difficult time dealing with them. And there is one other thing about this matchup, that a really smart Dragon player can just not play things to the board and just stick to the Storm game plan. The reason that's important is because if they're playing things to the board, they're giving Control Blood the option to heal out of range of being killed. So if they just kind of stick to that game plan of just, I'm going to Storm, and I'm a Storm, and I'm a Storm, and I'm a Storm, they're not giving Control Blood the option to heal out of range.
Right. Also, Hunter's deck has at least 2 Bahamut's in it, meaning that there is even more endgame against the Control Blood deck to wipe the board and just be a big threat. So I think Hunter's deck is actually shaped up really nicely against Bad, especially now that there's no Rev in hand for Bad to actually clear this board up. Hunter's going to start taking a really nice lead here.
Well, I made mention earlier about Mask of Black Death being a really, it's a decent card in this particular matchup. It's not so decent right now. But
right now. Against an empty board, it could literally just be a 2-cost ward that blocks out a Forte attack or a Zeus attack, or just maybe make it so that you have 4 or 5 extra turns to just not worry about it.
Right. But unfortunately, that is not the case. He's really far away from being able to play his own Bahamut. We see that Hunter is going to be able to play his way sooner. He might not even have to, depending on what the remainder of his draws are. But I feel as if Hunter is actually in a very good spot right now.
Yes, he is. Now, on the flip side of things, there is a Spawn of the Abyss followed by a Temptress Vampire in the hand for Bad. So he does have a way to kind of inch forward. I just don't know if it's going to be enough.
Well, the thing is, he's not going to be able to play that Spawn of the Abyss before Hunter is going to have access to Bahamut. And he's going to deal a lot of damage to Bad way beforehand. Way beforehand.
And Hunter, let's see if he respects the Vengeance.
He does.
Perfect. This is a good thing because this is a turn where if a Revelation was drawn, could not be played. So very heads up play. Of course, we know there's a Blood Moon in hand, so the Rev could have been played, but Hunter doesn't know that. So playing with the information he has, very good play.
Now, what I find a little vexing right now is this Dire Bond.
Right.
You're running Belvoir and Dire Bond. That feels
very dicey meta to run Dire Bond in. When everybody's going complete aggro, like that becomes a dead draw if you don't play it on turn 3, essentially. You just can't really ever find time to play it.
I'm very curious to know the reasoning behind the Dire Bond inclusion in the list. I would not dare play Dire Bond in Control Blood right now. So this guy has a sturdier heart than I do. And I love Dire Bond, but I would not be doing it.
And just unfortunately just doesn't have any board clear options. Like his option really is like he can Blood Moon with a Diabolic Drain with a Mask of Black Death. And that's really it. Like I mean, he could technically buff him into maybe a third Sabrewer. Yeah, just not a lot of options here. And playing the Mask doesn't feel good here.
No, it doesn't. But if he does play the Mask right, let's say like right now, what happens is he keeps the board locked because there'll be nothing to... Wait.
What? Well, I mean, that's kind of okay, but not really okay at all.
Well,
now,
the board is locked, though.
The board is locked, but that also means that the board's basically just going to remain locked until Bad does something about it, being at 3 health now, with Forte in hand. And
an Evo point, so in the event that he would have to heal to 9, which he can't do this turn. Well, there's the Rev, but...
Yeah, Rev isn't good enough. He's got a Diabolic Drain before Rev, and that's still not good enough.
He could have actually saved himself. He could have saved himself a lot of damage if he had just played that match. That completely different. I just... Yeah, the Dire Bond was the Achilles heel here.
Right.
And unfortunately,
we even said you can't play it, and then he just decided to pop his own mask with it.
Yeah, that really threw me for a loop, bro. I don't know, like playing directly into your opponent's fortes.
Yeah.
That's all I can say, man.
That's okay. He had a match to lose, so maybe he can brush himself off from this. Unfortunately, he has to play Control Blood's natural enemy, which is Combo Forest. So the thing about Control Blood is that it takes a long time to win. The thing about Combo Forest is that if you give it enough time, it will just win. So just by natural archetypes, I think that Unner has it pretty much in the bag here. But of course, Bad does have access to special plays. Like if he plays his masks more correctly in this match, to block out specific turns, he can definitely get there.
Yeah, holding your mask is literally. I actually will hard mulligan for mask against Forest just so I have it. Because like my earlier game removal isn't so important because for the most part the OTK decks are not running 1-drops, they're probably not playing a 2-drop, because we know that most of their 2-drops are just going to be Roach. So I'm like, you know what? I want to have my mask. I want to have it for those really, really important turns. Those turns 6, 7, and 8. I want to have my masks. So I will straight up dump the entire hand. For
that makes sense. In matchups like this, you kind of have to. It's kind of like when you're playing against D-Shift as Control Blood, you need to mull for like as aggressive of a start as you can get. So like Control Blood's like really good at doing a lot of things, but it has to mold its game plan to what it's playing against. So it's got to remain flexible, and you have to know that about the deck.
So, but yeah, one of Control Blood's biggest strengths is that it does incredibly well against board-centric decks. However, it's not so good against what I'll call hidden information decks. Roach, D-Shift, etc., etc. It's not so good against those. A lot of its core components are centered around just fighting on the board. It's got cards like Sabrewer, it's got cards like Emeralda, again, cards that target the board.
Oh my goodness.
This is not a hand you want.
Yeah, Bad is literally just going to take infinite free damage here.
This is a bad hand.
And as soon as his board's dealt with... yeah. And Unner can literally just sit on it. He already has 2 Roaches. He doesn't need to get anything else, essentially. He's got spells in Sylvan Justice. He has a Fairy left over in hand. He doesn't have to do anything. That was a very important draw, but again, 7 damage has already been dealt. And if Unner doesn't play anything else, there's not really going to be any good heal options for Bad either. I mean, he can play some Brewers into empty boards, but that doesn't feel good.
Well, against Forest, I think it's fine to play Sabrewer on empty boards just to gain the health.
I mean, you probably have to. Yeah.
Yeah, because you still gain the health even if you don't kill something. So I think that is still good to do, but you're right. It doesn't feel good because you're not getting the full value out of the card.
Now, I don't agree with the play here of playing Wood of Brambles into multiple fairies. I might have just played Wood of Brambles and passed, just to load up with fairies in hand. Because now, as we see, now Bat has all these options to gain his health. So basically, all that early chip damage you got was kind of wasted away.
Yeah.
If you don't give your opponents targets for Diabolic Drain, they can't heal, right?
Right. Well, at least not with that. But I mean,
Right.
Sabura actually got to, with the Diabolic Drain, actually got the clear board, which is not something that happens often against Forest. You know, people don't really play out their stuff so much with Forest.
Right.
You know?
Well, now, like I said, they can because there's just a lot more options to do things in the deck. But
Especially like this.
There was nothing to be afraid of.
like this makes sense. You don't want to Evo Athena into that.
No, you never want to do that. You want to try to keep your Athena around as long as possible. Ooh,
Oh, here we
there
go.
There we go. He's not even playing.
Exactly what I didn't want.
Instead,
I really would have played that. Really, 100%.
talk to people about that card. I know you've been a fan of that card. Talk to people about why.
Okay, so Fenrir is a 6 play point 4/6 that has Rush, which is something that,
You're kidding.
you know, the deck that Control Blood doesn't really have a lot of access to, outside of like a few cards. But when it kills something,
This thirst.
it will do 2 damage to another follower. That's really sweet.
Yes.
And I think you should be playing your Mask of Black Death right now.
I think this is the perfect turn. Because next turn you have Temptress, following turn you have, you know, Emeralda, you have all the cards that you need already.
Yeah.
And your opponent's about to go to turn 8. You know they have a 0-cost Goblin Mage in hand. I think I would pull the trigger on Mask right now, just to feel
Yeah,
safe.
you need to be playing that card yesterday. Okay?
Because
back
19
in
and
time.
20 is huge.
It is.
And if you Mask here and then Temptress next turn to go back to 20, you're pretty safe against most combos until like turn 9-10.
Well, the thing is, Honor, outside of burning his Roach combo, has literally no way of getting rid of this Mask. You should be playing
Right.
Mask right now. This is exactly what we were talking about earlier.
This is the spot, because if he doesn't, there is a world where that Mask just doesn't see play for a while and the combo just kicks in.
Yeah.
And realistically,
Come on.
if he does draw, let's see, he doesn't need to draw any bounce spells. He already has Max, so he could play 1-2, and then he's got 3, 4, 5, which is 12, 14 damage out of
Okay.
hand. Yeah, okay.
I was praying, man. I was like, please play the Mask.
Yeah.
Please play
When he
it.
cleared Forest board off, they, like you said, they don't really have a way to get rid of it. So,
They don't have a kaleidoscopic glow, thankfully.
right. If Forest had kaleidoscopic glow, then we'd be
Oh
talking.
my goodness. Don't say such horrible things.
Then we'd be talking.
Oh man, that's disgusting. Anyway,
Yeah. I think easy Temptress here. Just go back up to 20, get the damage in, force your opponent to either Evo.
ooh,
never
no,
mind.
you snap spawn.
Yes, snap spawn. Bad notes.
Snap spawn right away. So for the people who may not know what Spawn of the Abyss is, it has ambush. Whenever this follower attacks, it deals 5 damage to the enemy leader if ambush is active. So basically the effect only triggers once, but that's a big boy. Okay,
Yeah.
and if they kill it while it is in ambush, it still deals the 5 damage to their face.
Yep. And the reason
Still.
he pre-evoed there is to get it out of range of Will of the Forest or Cassiopeia. Essentially just so that he wants all that damage. He knows that the game's coming to a close against Roach. And he wants to try to end the game as fast as possible. Now, that'll deal 13. Temptress for 5 will be 18, so not quite lethal, but pretty close. And you put
Now-
2 followers in play that are really hard to deal with.
Now, Exo, tell the people about ambush. What is it?
Okay, yeah. So ambush is essentially when a card comes down, if it has ambush, it cannot be attacked or targeted until you attack with it. So essentially just kind of sits there. Now some cards have ambush and they can just sit there forever. Some cards only have ambush for a turn. So very important distinction to know if that ambush leaves the follower. Realistically though, with Spawn of the Abyss, it's going to leave the turn after you play it, unless there's some
Right.
extraneous circumstance. But
Right.
Hey, let's
Now, there is a consideration to play a Roach to burn out this Mask of Black Death just to get it out. And I think
I
that's
think
what
you
he's
have
doing.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to. Technically speaking, you don't even need that Roach, so you don't. I wouldn't have used the bounce here.
Yeah, that part is a little questionable.
Now
The
you don't have
bounce.
enough low-cost cards in your hand to actually combo.
Right.
You already had 2 Roaches plus a bounce. I think that just put him in a really tough spot, actually.
Yeah, he doesn't have lethal anymore.
Let's see, he still has 0 cost. He has Sylvan Justice, so that's 2 spells, 3
He has
spells with
one
a
0
fairy.
cost.
Yeah, he has 1 0 cost. He has 3 spells with a fairy, and then 4, 5, 6, which is 15, 17 with an Evo. So yeah, lethal is not a possibility. Actually, yeah, he needs all of the board space in his hand, so the damage from in play doesn't really count towards that.
Move.
Ooh, I don't know if I would have done this. I think I would have played the Temptress Vampire here and
Yeah,
just
go up
jammed
to
everything
20.
face.
Go up to
Yeah.
20.
Yeah. 1 is a massive number in
Huge.
this matchup.
We even saw it earlier today where Force was 1 damage shy.
Yeah. The 1 is a big number.
That takes up a board space, so that won't be able to create lethal either.
No. He is going to have to come up with a way to kill this Spawn of the Abyss.
Yeah.
Actually, he's going to have to come up with a way to kill both things, but definitely the Spawn of the Abyss.
Playing out his Nature's Guidance and that extra fairy costs him lethal this turn.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's just got to sit there and wait, but he doesn't have any time to wait anymore.
No. You got an 8-9 and a 4-4 sitting in your grill. I don't think that you have a lot of time to be sitting there like, you know what, man? I got an extra turn. No, you don't.
I feel like another hard example of a Forest player just misusing his resources a little bit.
Yeah, this is why.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah, this is why Forest is definitely the hardest class to play. We saw a lot of people get to this position. Not a lot of people, but we saw several people get to this
Decent
spot.
amount.
Where, yeah, but when it comes down to this, there's that little bit of crunch where, well, he does actually have the ability to that's great. But
That is great. But now
Played it out
Emeralda
well.
to the dome piece.
well, no, he can't attack with Emeralda. He's not invented.
That's right. So Temptress Vampire comes down, puts Bad back up to 20. You have to go for the oh, what?
Gimme!
Wait, why are you
What?
playing a 0 now? Why are you
That
playing
makes
that?
literally no sense to me.
Why would okay, Bahamut is actually safe here.
Yeah, Bahamut's super safe here. Now that the 0
yeah.
cost is gone,
Yeah, you know that they don't have any other 0. Oh wait, they have the 0 fairies.
and
But
he knows.
like
he
0 cost
felt
fairies.
it. Bad knows
Yeah,
what he's
they-
doing.
Magic.
Yeah.
Not so bad in practice.
Sorry, man, we're punning your name today, bro.
That's right.
And
I think
watch us
Unner just
out-
literally just
out-
gave the game away turn after turn after turn just with how he's playing his cards out.
Yeah. This is not something that happens often, but Trollblade.
Hey, let's play.
Bad played
Now,
really
the-
well.
the-
Made all
The
right
thing
decisions.
is, the game's not over, right? Like, that Bahamut's not going to be able to go face unless, like, a rev happens off the top.
Oh.
So the game's not over yet. Oh, is he just going to go in for the Bahamut here?
Well, I don't think he's going for the Bahamut. I think he's just jamming all to the
okay.
grill.
Okay. I like it.
I don't hate it.
It's a much better play than he has made.
However,
However,
wow.
if there was a rev here or any type of board clear, he basically just conceded the game because there'd be no way to win the game after this. So basically,
Right.
he's just throwing all his chips in, saying, "This is what I have. It's got to win." Now,
Well,
as we can see,
Tim
Bad
just
doesn't
puts
have
him
a way
out
to
of
win.
lethal. Yeah, Tim just puts him way out of lethal range.
Yeah, I think what you do here is you Temptress face, and then trade with one of the roaches. You could even Temptress one of the roaches, but again, a Temptressing face allows for an Emeralda to be lethal. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can wait any longer.
You were life to me.
Oh, he
Okay.
went for the roach. Okay, that's fine. But the Bahamut's not in any danger of dying anyway.
No.
So this is also a fine line.
But yeah, from this point on, after expending the roaches, without playing cards like Ancient Elf in the deck, which most of the roach lists don't play anymore, not really a way to kind of finish the game out.
Yeah, this game's over now. Emeralda comes down, and Temptress Emeralda goes face.
Yep.
Man, that was close, but this just goes to show you that one play. One can cost you the game. Just one. Him playing his 0 at the time that he played it.
And even 2 turns earlier when he played out his low cost followers and spells. So bad taking
wins. Honor is out and nearly had the victory in his hands, but just gave him the kick.
He got the boot, man.
I like how when Exodium does it, he has a guy walk forward a bit.
I know, he's walking over and then he gets
he's got to walk a little bit. When you see a kicker in football, he doesn't just like...
All right, we'll go like this and then get the boot.
He gets a running start.
To see. Yeah, he gets a running start.
Wow.
You gotta kick it hard. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Honor is out of there, and Bad will move on. And let's get an update. So this is really interesting because Bad moving on means it's a rematch of what we saw, or the match that was played in the upper bracket. We didn't get to see that, but Dusty has already shown that he's beaten Bad once. Now, the scoreline being 2-1 makes me think that there's definitely a possibility that the games are very close. So this result might not be the exact same as we saw on the winner side of the bracket, but we'll see. Dusty versus Bad. I don't know. What do you think about Bad's deck list? What do you think about Control Blood? How do you think it matches up against what Bad has, or what Dusty has to offer?
It's a really big 50-50 right now, honestly. I need to see which player can hone their nerves in and stop messing around with their cards, honestly, before I make a real prediction about it. I think all the players are playing well, but if they want to win this thing, they've just got to take a moment, take a deep breath. Now, the last thing I'll say is none of these players are bad, right? These aren't bad players. These are just players with nerves, and they're making small mistakes. They just need to brush them off a little bit, that's all. Just a little bit.
Every tiny inch matters, and especially at this level of tournament, you're on the verge of making it into Season 3, which is very big, right?
Very big.
Puts you in contention for the Season 3 prize, or the Starforged Legends Shadowverse Open prize, also the World Grand Prix prize, possibly, if you make it through the Contenders Cup. But, Aya Senpai, what do you think? What in particular, I mean, I know Best Mama is still going to be your player to move through, but what do you think about these two players so far, Dusty and Bad?
Well, they've both shown, as EXO said, they've both shown that they're good players. We have seen Nerves kind of get the best of both, but I think to anyone who's new to competitive play, that's going to happen to all of us.
Right.
We're all
going to
just
players at all.
Oh no, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying like we're definitely going to see that. Since we didn't get to see this match before, I'm incredibly interested to see this particular match because this was played out in the winner's side, and now they're meeting in the loser's side. So I'm very interested to see how their match is played up, but I'm really glad to see Control Blood. So,
yep. Control Blood is back, and I know somewhere out there Envy is turning and just flailing.
It's never going away, Envy.
And just
That's
screeching.
her problem. Control Blood.
Never going
away.
I can just
I
can almost hear the distant re in Envy's voice right now.
You got
That's
sword.
perfect.
Give me Control Blood.
Yep. Control Blood is his thing. So we're about to jump into the game. The players are ready. They're set to go. And let's see who will make it out. This particular match is very important. Winner of this is in Season 3. And so the question has to be decided who will make first and second in the qualifier. But for these two players, Dusty and Bad, they can cut out all their, future uncertainty and effort in just closing it out right here. If not, they'll have to go for week 2 or week 3 and try again all the way from the start of the tournament. So that's it. That's it. This is the end of the road here. It's do or die.
That's right.
Dusty or Bad. I cannot imagine if I was to play in any of these tournaments. I don't think I would be able to do it. Honestly, I think I would just get to a certain point where like, all right, this is way too stressful for me.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yep. I'm gonna kick myself out. Walk to the door and kick myself out the door. But That's why I'm terrible at the game, and that's why I'm here instead of there. So,
We like you here, Rainey. We like you right here where you're at.
They're good, man.
to be honest, I'm pretty bad at what I'm doing here as well. But
Oh,
there we
on.
go. Dragon
Oh,
and Forest against Blood and Forest. I love it. Look at all these Forestcraft players. Oh,
This is disgusting.
All day, every day, Forest.
Wait,
Let's go.
Control like banned out, dude.
That's interesting.
What?
Yeah,
What?
when you have a Forest, Sword, and Aggro Blood lineup, I believe that's what Dasvi has is Aggro Blood. You ban out the Control Blood. Interesting. It kind of makes sense in the fact that it could be the only control deck that you're really afraid of, but like PDK seems better versus all of your decks. I'm interested. I'm interested to see here.
Okay, I never thought I would see the day where Control Blood would be banned against the Roach.
Right.
But hey,
Right.
man.
Teach their own.
Basketball-
Teach their own.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is all player strategy, so maybe he just doesn't want to play against the deck. Maybe he just knows. I mean, they have played this matchup before, so maybe in the first iteration of the matchup, Control Blood was not banned, and it was the one game win that we saw. So it could be that, and he's just like, you know what? That's the deck that gave you the best shot. I'm gonna shut it out.
You know what? That's fair.
Ow! Ow!
Although it's still awkward to see. Anyway, get back to this game, or rather, into the game.
Interesting to
So-
not see Wood of Brambles played here with an extra fairy. I feel like getting the extra tempo, especially this early in the game, really benefits you because you're the first active player with the Wood of Brambles clash effect. And for those of you who don't know, when they're Wood of Brambles staring at each other, the player whose active turn it is, their clash happens first. It's not like a back and forth.
Well, that's the clash effect. That's actually the clash rule, period. So,
Yeah.
the active player, yeah, it's not just what a Brambles specific. But,
But I'm just saying, this is relevant information for people playing right now.
oh, definitely.
Let's play.
Definitely.
Yeah, see, the extra fairy would have cleared off the entire board on the previous turn. I mean, I don't mind waiting because Wood of Brambles gets full value this turn. You can just play out everything and it lasts longer in play. So it's not a bad play. It's just interesting to see.
Well, we're coming up on 4, and we don't necessarily see, we don't see EPM in Dasvi's hand, so he
Nope.
won't be doing the optimal turn 4 play, but he does have options. He does have access to Wood of Brambles and Sylvan Justice, so he can clear out some of these fairies.
I think that is the best option. Because along with what he has is, if he doesn't clear the board here, he's just going to be taking a ton of chip damage. We see in Bad's hand that he already has a Nature's Guidance and a Fina to fetch a 0-cost Goblin Mage, so
Uh-huh.
Let's play.
yeah.
Oh, he's going to go the fairy route.
Yeah, this works too. Essentially, it kills the same amount of things and leaves more left over.
You're done for.
Well, now this fairy is going to trade because this Wood of Brambles is on Dasvi's side. He's going to be able to, again, as we mentioned before, the clash effect, it triggers first, not the opponents. So,
Very, very interesting game to watch. Wolf Bramble battle.
you know, this is the first time I've seen this, actually. Like, it just, I don't really see Forest Mirrors that often. And it's definitely the first time I've seen Wood of Brambles battle.
Yeah, it's an actual battle in the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What we also don't see is any airbound barrages drawn by either player. So not like reusable and enforceable Wood of Brambles turn after turn, which is kind of what I wanted to see. But we're kind of just migrating into the combo plan. Both players have combo options now. Gobble Mage plus Fina for Dasvi. The Fina that was already played, and now a Gobble Mage for Bad. So they're kind of like at equal pace with each other. And now I would say that even though Bad had the early advantage, I think Dasvi's kind of slipping into the advantage because he gets the Evo last.
Yeah. Being able to Evo last in the matchup is incredibly important, I think. Or actually, in general, it's important, right?
Well, I guess technically, Bad could do the Cassiopeia play here just for a clean board and then just attack face for one. And then that would prompt Dasvi to play the Fina to Evo, which would in turn give Bad the last Evo. So I think Cassiopeia might actually be the play here over Goblin Mage.
So,
Or-
you think, okay, so there's no consideration to play the EPM, which he's...
Well, I don't like EPM here because EPM breaks. EPM doesn't survive this.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't survive because of the clash effect of Wood of Brambles.
Right. So this Evo, I'm definitely not a fan of. I don't like that.
Well, he can definitely trade into a fairy and survive with Fina. So he can definitely do that. There's no problems there.
Yeah, especially with no Evo on the bounce back now. Like this is basically gonna prompt a Cassiopeia. Like it has to be played. Which in turn gives Dasvi that extra turn to maybe go into a combo turn. So looking pretty good for Dasvi. But again, we see that Bad has the 3 health point advantage, which we know is huge in this matchup. So this is a very spicy game.
He does have that, and he does actually have access to his combo next turn. So yeah, he has it next turn. He's got 3 zeros, I believe. Yeah, he's got the 2 fairies, and he's got the mage. He's got the bounce. Yeah. So yeah, he has his combo next turn. Yeah, I kind of got tongue tied there.
Ooh, that roach is good, but you can't set up lethal on turn 7 with no evos and 1/0 cost. So this is not a lethal turn, and there's not really a really good way to deal with this Cassiopeia either.
The roach, which you really wouldn't want to do.
Right. So I think this is just like a Fina plus Fairy Circle Fairy turn? Maybe even just Fina plus Fairy without playing the Fairy Circle to hold that for combo?
But then if he does that... Yeah, feels pretty bad.
Yeah, there's just not really a lot you can do here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I thought Dasvi was looking up, but then, yeah, looking at after the EPM trade, so he did set up a nice little combo forward turn, but again, he only has access to 1 roach at the moment, so it's not going to be a lethal setup next turn. Next turn is going to have to be like a Goblin Mage from Bad, the 3-cost one, into like some board control, which does give Dasvi again another turn. So it does opt to play the Fairy Circle here. I'm not a big fan of that play. Holding it, I think, is a little better because it gives you an extra spell with your roach combo. And there's no real reason to pop it here because you're not playing out any of the fairies.
Yeah, for me, it's always weird to see Roach, even when I do see him, Roach mirrors, just to see how, I would say, intricate the matchup is. Just
super intricate. Like this turn, playing Lilac instead of Goblin Mage to, again, power out a combo turn on turn 9, which would have been lethal. Is now just halted because he played the Lilac. So playing overly defensive, I think Bad is. Could have set up lethal turn.
Well, we do... this is kind of, again, one of those nerves thing. You don't really think about it. You know, just kind of like, okay, I need to get something out. I need to apply more pressure. But wait, I could kill him.
So here's what I'll tell people. If you really want to play Forest, you have to play the deck a lot. The reason why I know the lethal turns and all that stuff really fast is because I've played Forest thousands of games. I know just by a glance what is possible and what's not in most scenarios. Sometimes I have to count. But it's a really tough deck to just know that with, right? And like you have to know it pretty fast so that you can actually think about it and then do it in a given turn without running out of time. Right.
That's always been my problem with it, is that I'll just run out of time. Like, oh wow, I had lethal, I just saw it. Oh wait, I'm dead. You know, because I've lost my turn. Feels bad.
Okay, so he's going for a setup turn here, using all of his 1-drops to do so. Which
would have been a little different. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, using all of his 1-drops here means that he takes away his lethal option for the following turn as well. So
see, this is actually where things... Sorry, I cut you off again.
No, that's fine. I was done. You're good.
Okay. All I was going to say was that this is actually where that playing that Fairy Circle, the turn before, kind of
really hurts.
Yeah, really hurt. Just
really
that
hurts.
One, again, more micromanaging. The small decisions that could really turn a game around. We could have actually seen a lethal performed maybe 2 turns ago, or maybe not 2 turns ago, maybe last turn.
Well, this turn for sure for Bad could have been a lethal turn.
Right.
But I don't know why he's so hesitant to play the Goblin Mage. Like, I don't know why he's holding it back. I'm not sure what he's saving it for. You know what I mean? Okay, here we go.
I don't know. He's saving it for Christmas, man.
Right? Again, playing fairies to the board, if you cannot clear your board off, then there's nowhere for your roaches to actually hit play. So if he adds or increases his board here, he doesn't really have a way to play his roaches and combo them very well. So he's giving Daspi more time.
He's not only giving him more time, but he's giving himself less time. Like,
Right?
by doing this, Daspi never has to play anything that would allow Bad to clear.
This is actually just a lethal, isn't it?
Oh, wait. You're right, it is. Okay, we were too busy talking about one thing and missed the lethal sitting right
So
in front.
because Bad did not play his Goblin Mage earlier, it allowed Daspi the time to set up a lethal turn.
Wow.
Very simply put.
So a matchup that Bad was actually, he had the tool.
He had the
But
game. It was his game.
Yeah, his game to lose, and he certainly lost.
Very interesting to see. Like, it's, I love Force. I love watching it play, and I like that we get to commentate on a lot of this because I hope a lot of these players can take home with them just things to think about when they play, right?
Right.
Like, hopefully, I don't mean to say anything in a bashing nature towards any of these players because, like I said, Force is the hardest deck. These players have shown that they're good. It's just Forest, man. Forest, like you said, so much micromanaging, so much random stuff that can happen. Like, you really just have to be on top of it, you know?
Right.
And hopefully they can take home with them today a lot of information to go home and just, like, practice with.
One thing I would encourage the people who are playing in these events to do is to, if they're not watching like the stream, because obviously they're playing the matches, so they're probably
Or the
not watching the
VODs.
stream, right? But I would definitely recommend watching the VODs. Like, I would definitely recommend going back, watching your matches from before to see where you messed up, what you could have done better, etc., etc. Just
Akamaru Red,
make sure to do that.
EU Season 2 champion, said in his interview that I watch all of my VODs after every single tournament. It's how I help myself win.
Yep.
Straight from the winner's mouth.
So if you're gonna follow anyone's advice, follow his.
Yeah, don't listen to
Because-
us, okay? You can listen to him.
Yeah, because he's a winner.
That's right. He's
Okay.
a winner.
He's a winner, man. So follow him. Do what he. Yeah, Akamaru Red. Great guy. Anyway.
Shed tears of joy, I've arrived.
So, interesting bite play here. It does protect
Yeah.
Urius, which is super important against Forest. Urius is a real big pain in the butt for Forest. It always has been.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. And the clash effect from
Really?
Lilac actually takes place first
Mhm.
because, again, active player. So Vite also has a clash effect, but again, wasn't on the active player's turn. So
Yep,
in
so
other
we'll get
words,
to use.
active player has priority.
It's interesting to see the new removal card in Dasvi's hand. I know this is a card that you've really liked. I haven't
I
seen it
do.
in any aggro variants though.
Well, the thing is, it does do damage to both players. It's like Ambling Wraith, but a removal card. So it's like Ambling Wraith, and people run Ambling Wraith, but it's on.
So I guess
removal,
it's like a
and that's-
Hungering Horde replacement because maybe Death's Breath's not as prevalent right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Soling Chains. So for those who don't know, Soling Chains deal 1 damage to both leaders, then do 3 damage to the enemy follower, so it can help clear out a ward or just get rid of some problematic follower that your opponent has. And it can also do damage to both players. So that 1 damage, as we've been talking about this entire event, 1 is a big number.
Huge number.
Big number.
Especially with all this force running around. 1 damage is life or death in a lot of scenarios. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is just a lethal setup over 2 turns. So Bad has to win right now, and he does not have the tools to win right now.
No. None of them. 0. Even if he clears this, it's double Razor Claw. I mean, he would have to heal, draw Cresselia Aaron.
He'd have to draw.
That would put him on a
Aaron.
lethal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing that he could draw. Only thing.
Aggro Blood, double
And
Urius against Forest. And this is even a Forest hand that didn't have a lot of cards to play out of hand, and it still did a ton of work.
Yeah. So, Snarling Chains, that 1 damage actually
Huge.
really mattered.
Huge.
Yeah, So Aggro Blood got yet another burn card, and it obviously that 1 damage put in a lot of work.
I think he's really just going into the tank about like, okay, how much damage can my opponent possibly do? Realistically, I don't think you even have to show a Razor Claw here, because unless your opponent has an Aaron, either way, like if your opponent does have an Aaron, you would have been happy to have saved your Razor Claw. If they don't have it, you still win. So,
which he definitely doesn't have.
Doesn't have it. So,
unfortunately, his face is about to be shredded.
I do think that the most heads up play though would have been just to save the Razor Claw. I don't think you needed to play that card right there.
Well, I mean, isn't playing it there just telegraphing it?
It's telegraphing what you have, right? Now, if you didn't have the second Razor Claw, it makes sense because then your play is just going to be Caraboss and you just want to continuously deal damage, right?
Right.
But having lethal in your hand, just don't show your opponent it, right? Because say he didn't play Razor Claw there, and Bad did draw something like an Aaron. Maybe he wouldn't have played the Aaron because he doesn't think a lethal is possible, right?
Right.
So it's just there's a lot of mind games that go into competitive play as well.
It's not all luck, guys.
Not all luck, I guarantee you that.
Well, unfortunately,
Good
Bad
job.
is gonna get the boot.
He's getting the kicks.
Oh, no.
Yep, he's getting.
He's getting the little finger kicks.
Yeah.
There it goes. Bad is out of there, and Dasvi will win with Roach Force and Aggro Blood. And it was the Caraboss deck. It was still in there. We did see it.
Yep. And it's
so
going to the finals.
Dasvi moves on, and this means that Best Marma and Dasvi will be our first 2 new European qualifiers for Season 3, and they will have an opportunity to play in the Contenders Cup and maybe go to the World Grand Prix, and they just have to fight out for the first or second place spot. So, I mean, very interesting game. Roach is obviously a very kind of complicated deck to play. There's a lot of different ways that you can come up into lethal scenarios, and I feel like this was a good demonstration of that between Dasvi and Bad, right? They were both in situations where there's a lot of different considerations to have. How did you guys feel about that particular matchup? And I guess kind of for Dasvi, what do you hope to see for him moving forward into the Starforged Legends season of the Shadowverse Open here?
Realistically, it's just new players, right? Talk to me, right? Like, new players brings new interactions, new decks, new deck ideas, new deck builders, you know what I mean? Like, different people testing the stuff. So realistically, not just one player, but all the new players that we get to see this season, a whole lot of new stuff just in general. Like, I'm excited to see everything get mixed up. I want to see last season players if they can compete with these new players, you know what I mean? So, what do you think, Guy?
If we just look at history, right? Look at Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Akamaru Red. Complete unknown. No one knew
unknown.
who he was. No one knew who he was. He never entered any of our tournaments. He never entered any, just nothing. And then, winner! It's like, winner! He's an example that new ideas can certainly work. They can work, they can win, they can do well, and he's a perfect example of that, and we're seeing it now. We're seeing
and
Aggro Blood
methodology.
do well. Yeah, we're seeing Aggro Blood do well. We're seeing Roach. Hey, let's go. Let's get it, man.
It's happening. Let's get an update on the tournament. Just one match left. That's grand finals. Best Marmot versus Dasvi. New versus the old, and they will of course be joining the Season 2 top 6 players there, and have to fight off against those players who I think have honed their round robin and competitive Shadowverse skills over the course of a few months, and see how these guys stand up to them. Of course, I think you guys are absolutely right. The new blood makes for a lot of different lines of play and deck building that maybe is a little bit different than what you've gotten used to. Sometimes the meta can be very, like, everybody is just in that box, thinking within the context of who's around them. And when somebody new enters the mix, then everything gets thrown to chaos. But
Chaos,
yeah. we are about to go into our final match, and we have a very special guest that's going to come on. And so he's going to take the place of Aya Senpai, and we've talked a little bit about the special guest on the show already today, but it is going to be the Season 2 European Champion, Akamaru Red. So with that, Aya Senpai, how did you feel about the first qualifier week? How did you feel about the decks, the lines of play?
I thought that we got to see some good Shadowverse. If anything, the one thing that we've learned, actually the one thing that we've seen today, is that everybody has something new to learn. So every single time that these events come up, and we saw a lot of those little micro interactions between a lot of decks that just could win or lose the game either way. So hopefully everyone would take that into a consideration, but that's what I've seen today, and that's why I'm really glad that I got to cast a lot of them.
And now we're going to see these players grow over the course of the season, see what kind of players they become, and if they will end up matching up against the other regions over on the East as well as in North America. We finally do get to see that. So with that, we're going to cut to a short commercial break, and when we come back, Exodium and I are joined by Akamaru Red. All right, Aya, off the top of my head, I don't know if we'll see you tomorrow, but if not, definitely next week.
I'm definitely on next
Did you just
week,
kick?
so.
Did you just kick Aya Senpai out of here?
It's my
I never
thing,
did
and I
this.
get booted.
I never did this. I never did this.
You know what, man? You know what?
All right, we're gonna go to commercial break, and while we do that, Aya Senpai gets the boot. All we have to do to defeat the ultimate carrot is banish it. Hey! Whoa! No. Don't you do it, that's an heirloom. You'll pay for that. Join the fight for the Starforged Legends season of the Shadowverse Open starting October 7th. All right, we are back. Oh my God! We got
Ohio.
Hello. How you guys doing?
Wow, I like the new camera angle. It's
Yes.
We get a closer look at the books. We get to know what are those books. Can you grab one of them and tell me what the title is? What are they?
Sure. They're
That's
mainly
good.
Portuguese books. So I'll show you one, I guess. So it means that somewhere in Sicilia. I don't know the book. It's my mom's book, so.
Wow, that sounds like something I want to have with Exodium. A summer in Sicilia with Exodium. That'd be great.
Lovely. Perfect.
Even though I have access to all these books, I gotta be honest, I don't read them all. So.
Well, you're reading Shadowverse cards.
That's right.
Yeah.
Plenty of reading to be done.
Yeah, lots of reading. So, Akamaru Red, thank you so much for joining us. Love to have you back for Season 3, of course. You're not playing in the qualifiers because you were the season champion. Of course, that means top 6 of Season 2. So, have you been watching the tournament today? What do you think of the players? What do you think of all these new faces showing up in the qualifiers? How did you feel about the day today?
Now, I'm having a lot of fun watching the tournament. I see a lot of new faces. Most of the names from the top 8 that we see, I didn't even know them. And what surprises me is that we got a lot of the old Season 2 players playing on this qualifier, and they actually got removed from the tournament really early on, like round 1, round 2. They lost twice in a row, and that really surprised me. So that means that we have new talent, and I'm excited to see.
What do you think in terms of kind of your own preparation, your own research and study? Are there any decks in particular that you hadn't really been thinking of but changed your mind after watching today, or any thoughts that you think you're more confident of now about your deck preparation?
I was not surprised on this tournament. I think a lot of people were expecting a lot of those decks, and we do a lot of preparation, but if I was gonna say like a deck that surprises me was actually Tempo Haven or the Storm Haven variant. I was expecting a lot more Aegis, and either wing surprised me to not make a show. I thought that card would be played.
Yeah, I think there was only one instance where it was an Etherwing deck, but it didn't even make it to that point. So very interesting. But we have this match set up now, Best Marmot versus Dasvi. And if you were kind of in this scenario, in this particular tournament, what would the 3 decks that you would bring, what would those be?
I had a lot of thought about this because even though I don't play, I like to be in the shoes of the players. So I think I would be playing Shadow, Forest, and Prime Dragon Keeper Dragon. That would be my mid-range Shadow and Forest.
Interesting. So Marmot got 2 of the 3, but you're choosing to bring Forest as opposed to Sword, and maybe let's talk about that as the game is starting within the context of Marmot, because he's on the winner's side. It's very likely that he's going to make it out in first place, but what is your argument for bringing Forest over Sword?
Honestly, it's just a comfort zone. I'm much more comfortable with Roach. I have like 400 games with Roach, and Aggro Sword, I haven't even touched it because I'm not a fan of it. So, of course, I analyzed it, but I just didn't play it. So,
well, there you have it. Sometimes your player preference shows through, and Akamaru Red, a true soldier and advocate of Forestcraft, unlike another particular commentator that has been booted out.
Hey, we all love Forest. Now that I is gone, we can all espouse our love for Forest. It's a great day.
All right, so talk to me about this match. Dasui versus Best Marmot. Akamaru Red, give me your predictions, and please help us kick off this particular game.
absolutely. So we see Forest against Dragon, Prime Dragon, Keeper Dragon, and I am of the community side that actually thinks Forest is favored in this matchup because Prime Dragon Keeper plays to the board, but you can actually play from your hand with OTK Forest, and you can OTK them from 20 damage if you have enough time.
Yep. Not just if you have enough time, but if you use your resources properly, right? Like we've seen Prime Dragon Keepers not being dealt with even with Dance of Deaths in hand in previous matchups, things like that. So realistically, it's just about making sure you keep Prime Dragon Keeper off the table as long as you can, and then building up your resources to actually OTK with.
Exactly, and we see an answer being used this early on the game. It kind of concerns me as a Forest player because we see Fortes and we see a lot of non-interactive followers. So I think you want to keep your answers, but on the other hand, he already has access to Dance of Death, which is, as you mentioned, a really strong card in this matchup.
Yep, and Cassiopeia, while being one of the best new cards out of the set for Forest, doesn't do a whole lot of work against Prime Dragon Keeper because generally they don't play it naked onto an empty board. They play it with a lot of backup. So that 5 toughness turning into 7 toughness sometimes is just too much for Cassiopeia to actually come, like, basically take down.
Absolutely. Prime Dragon Keeper, the strength of it is that even though you can't, she cannot be attacked, and she has a lot of health, so removal spells have trouble dealing with it. But we talked a lot about Forest because we are Forest mains. But
of course.
What do you feel about the dragon? What do you want to see as a dragon on the dragon side? Exo, sorry.
No problem. So are you talking about for this game or just in general?
Yeah, this matchup in general.
This matchup. So what I'm looking for, honestly, is early ramp as always. And then I honestly, in this matchup, want to see Fortes as soon as possible. Because I know that Forest only has a few answers to that, especially if they play a card like Airbound Barrage early in the game. I know they probably don't have access to too many more of them. I literally just want to storm them as fast as I can because I know that Roach can build up to those combo turns, right? Like, I play Roach plenty. I know that they can build up to a combo turn. I'm trying to kill them. I'm not trying to play this long, extended game where I try to outvalue them because generally speaking, you're not going to do that.
Exactly. You want to be able to pressure the Forest player. You want to be able to kill them before the turn 7 or turn 8, where they have access to a lot of mana and a lot of options. And we see double Bahamut, which is not necessarily what you want to see. Zeus is a much more stronger card in this matchup because when you play the Bahamut, you allow the Forest player to completely be free to do his entire combo on you.
Yeah, do whatever you want. Another aspect of the Forte is if you are playing Forte, and even if they do have an Airbound Barrage or a Dance of Death to remove it, you're literally dictating the pace of the game. You're saying, hey, Forest, you have to answer me. Hey, Forest, you have to answer me. Whereas Prime Dragon Keeper, in a real sense, you can kind of ignore his Forest for a long period of time. Maybe like a turn or two, which is really all you need to kind of finish out the game. So I would have to agree with you. I think Forest does have the edge as long as it's played optimally.
We got an interesting matchup here because we were talking about specific cards in this matchup, and both players actually got them. We see the activation on Prime Dragon Keeper really fast because he actually hit the ramp cards and is going to be able to put a lot of pressure because he also got the Forte.
Yeah, this is a huge turn. Double Prime Dragon Keeper, on the other hand, beyond just having one, is huge against Forest because realistically, there's not a turn, especially this early with 6 play points, that you can deal with both. It's kind of impossible. So you really just kind of have to play around and just hope that they don't have the lethal coming at you. What would you do in this situation? So you're Dasvi, you don't know what's in the hand of Best Marmot. What is your play here?
So on this situation, I start thinking about my lethal on this turn and my next turns, and I'm starting to add the math of Dance of Death, because I know at this point that Forte is probably not enough to kill me, so that's what he goes for. So I start calculating the 2 damage, and if I'm able to kill him on the next turn, and what kind of tools do I need to perhaps stop deck or even use to get the lethal, and he goes for that.
Perfect. So yeah, as we know, with 2 0 costs and 7 play points, and he only has 1 roach. If he had 2 roaches, he could deal a possible 15 damage, not 17. Unfortunately, you would need... oh, actually, no, 2 spells is 17. 3 spells would be more. So he could deal 17, which is still not lethal, so he doesn't have that set up yet. And that Forte, like we talked about, especially backed up by another Forte, might just close this game out too fast.
Yeah, we saw this game was very strong on the Dragon side. He had access to the ramp, and then he got double Prime Keeper into double Forte is probably one of the strongest hands you can have in this matchup.
Yep. And I think this is just going to close it out like that. First of all, the Prime Dragon Keeper can't be dealt with, and like we already said, the second Forte already in hand. It's kind of lead Marmot into an easy victory here.
Exactly. So he's doing the math. He's trying to see if there's any possibility of dealing 18 damage, which is unfortunately isn't, especially because he doesn't even have access to double roach. So
right.
At this point, I think he's realizing that he has no chance, and we're probably gonna see a Best Marmot playing really well, playing to his outs, keeping the Prime Dragon Keepers, just going for the ramp, and then just slowly being aggressive and forcing, like you mentioned, the Forest player to react. That's good.
Yep, absolutely. So, in your opinion, they always show it. You gotta show it. That's just the rule, man. Being a Prime Dragon Keeper player, have you made any techs? I know that you talked about it last time that we had a conversation, but have you made any new tech choices for the deck? Like, have you added in the card that can deal with the mirror? Like, have you made any changes significantly to it or anything like that?
No, the only change I've done was at this point was Zeus into the Bahamut, but I actually lost to Rahab, and I know you were talking about it before, and it does make sense. Having access to cheap ward followers can stop the Fortes, can stop the Genesis Dragons, can even stop the Roach lethal, so it's a very interesting card to add in the match.
It's a nice setup. Like, it obviously doesn't activate your Prime Dragon Keeper, but like, if you have Prime Dragon Keeper in play, and the only real way you have to lose is your opponent popping down Forte or Genesis Dragon specifically, or even Zeus for the most part, you just pop down a Rahab after you fill the board, and then your opponent just has to stop what they're doing, or they just have to waste their entire turn running into it. So I think it just gives you that nice little stopgap, especially in the mirror, and even against Roach combo, like if you just have a ward that you can plop out there, you know what I mean? I think wards are super effective in this metagame, and I don't think enough people are playing them.
Absolutely. There's also the high roll chance of getting Dragon Oracle being on the play. Dragon Oracle into Rahab.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Amazing.
He's so effective against most aggressive decks. It's one of the best starts you can have. And also Rahab just gets better the longer it goes, because as we mentioned, it blocks the important turns from most matchups, and he also grows in size even if you don't spend all the play points.
So one thing we noticed from Best Marmot, and what I really like about his direction of the Shadow deck, is not only is he playing Saris from the new set, but he's also playing the new 5-drop, the 3/5 Ward, which we just talked about. Ward's being very good right now. That has the extra ability of Necromancy to deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. What do you think about that card? Have you had any playtesting against it? Do you like it?
I did. I like it, and I added it to my mid-shadow deck as well. It's not only a meta call, but it works against every single matchup. You're never sad about playing a 5 play point, such an effective stat minion with Ward. You just have access to a lot of health, it protects you a lot. Like we mentioned, Shadow didn't have a lot of healing coming to this expansion, and now we have a natural curve that it's kind of healing. One heals us, and the other one protects us. And we saw it being really effective this tournament. He won a game off of that previously because he stopped
purely,
and then he was able to set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see Best Marmot having a nice little aggro draw here, but he doesn't really have anything to fall back on. So he's going to have a good soul conversion here, or just top deck some good cards in a row here. Like Prince Catacomb would be an amazing draw here.
Absolutely. Ooh. Ceres is also interesting, but like you mentioned, we don't have a lot of resources. I think I would keep the Ceres just because it would give me the option to evolve the next turn, or keep the Soul Squasher. I also want to get the Shadows for the Soul Squasher.
this doesn't even stop an EPM play. Like, EPM could easily run into that Ceres and you would have gotten no value out of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So very interesting
I
just to play the Ceres.
I really like to evolve Ceres against Forest. It's such a
Oh,
hard
yeah.
follower.
Oh, yeah.
So.
That's like, you must Dance of Death this, or I will keep clearing your board every single turn with it.
And as you mentioned, in case he evolved the Elf Princess Mage, we didn't even have a Soul Squasher activated, so we would need to Soul Convert, and we could just do that the previous turn, right? We'd see more options as well.
Exactly. So I think he's going to have to do it here. Like, attack, Soul Convert, see what you draw. Yep.
Also, another good point is that against Forest, you want to make your weak turns as early in the game as possible and not make it on turn 5. So we would have a turn 4 weak turn, but we would come back on turn 5 and get a little bit stronger turn 5.
Right, and it's huge because of cards like Fina. Now Fina can kind of just come out, do its job. Of course, Soul Squasher can come out and finish it off, but that uses up your shadows, and again, you're just limited on resources. So I think, actually, Dasby is pretty well set up this game. We don't see any Ektars or anything crazy out of Best Marmon at the moment.
Yeah, you will have a lot of time this game, and but Shadow is also always explosive, right? As soon as you get one of the strong cards, either Thane, even Blade Fiend, or Ektar, it's just really strong. You get in a really strong position to win the game.
So I agree with Dasby here, going for the Fina this turn instead of the Will of the Forest because he doesn't feel threatened. He knows that there's not a lot of cards in Best Marmon's hand, and he needs to go for lethal soon because he is running out of life points.
Exactly, and it's coming to the scary turns of Death's Breath, and speaking of Death's Breath, look at that. So I was gonna say about it is he's going to the scary turns of Shadow, which is always turn 6, turn 7, and he doesn't have a lot of ways to interact with it outside of Will of the Forest. So, like you mentioned, you need to speed up the combo and try to lethal before turn 7 or 8.
Yep. And this Ceres play backed up by a Death Breath next turn is unreasonably good against Forest. You have to deal with the Ceres, and then Death Breath comes down to be basically the best card against Forest, and it always has been, unfortunately. Yeah, just so much value out of that card.
This is also very smart. Going wide on this turn forces, for instance, the Cassiopeia or the Will of the Forest, and you have Death's Breath to back it up, so I really like the position from Best Marmon on this turn.
Yep, just like we were talking about. If you force Forest, that's one of the best ways to play against it. If you force Forest to be reactionary to you, you really get a lot of mileage against the deck. So just be aware of that, folks.
Absolutely. Forest wants to keep the Evo points for the Finas and for the Elf Princess Mages, and in these situations, if you force them to evolve fairies, it's a position that they don't want to be on. And unfortunately, Dasby doesn't have a very good hand because you want to draw into the roaches with your Goblin Mages or the Finas, and he has access to all the roaches, but we don't have access to 0-cost cards to even start pushing damage.
And Best Marmont knows that. So another thing to be keenly aware of, if you don't see any EPMs or Finas or anything like that that are putting 0-cost cards into the Forest player's hands, you know that it's just going to slow them down. So Best Marmont, knowing that very well, basically making as wide a board as he can to kind of play around Cassiopeia as best as possible, or Will of the Forest, which it does leave a follower in play, and he has the shadows again for Death Breath. So very well played by Best Marmont. I like what I'm seeing from him.
It was very well navigated. He realized he didn't need the wards the previous turn, so he chose to go wide and bait the Cassiopeia or the Will of the Forest, and now it's most likely a lockup on this game unless we see some other sort of AoE removal, which we don't see.
Nope, we're gonna have to see at least 2 roaches here just come down to essentially let Dasby survive. And that can't feel good, because then you have to combo from 18 with a single roach left.
And he might even dig for more answers, yeah, because he needs, even if he clears with the roaches, he needs some other sort of gas. But if he's going to use roaches to clear the board, and Shadow has 18 HP, it's very hard to win this game, and he realizes that, so.
Yep. So very well played by Best Marmont, not slowing down at all.
There it is.
Game.
Best Marmont takes the tournament win. Yeah. You know, Senpai was right all along. He was right all along.
Yep, he was. He was.
Yeah. I can't. So, Akamaru, being a competitor, are you familiar with either of these players? Are you familiar with Best Marmont or Duffy?
Absolutely not. From what I realized, Best Marmot is from the French community, because I know Fatina, and I know Fatina knows him, so I knows him really well. I think they prepared together for this qualifier. That's the only information I have of all the players, actually, which is really interesting.
Well, we also know that Fatina is a very, very good deck builder and very
Yes.
intelligent about that, and so maybe having that information, really helped Best Marmot out here because his decks were
Definitely didn't hurt him.
super good. I really feel like he brought a lot of consistency. Let's take a look at the bracket and see how the tournament has ended today. So first place finisher, Best Marmot, takes all the marbles and is in Season 3. And of course, Dasvi to join him as the second place finisher and also qualifier into Season 3. So these are the two opponents that Akamaru will now have to face against, and especially in the Contenders Cup as well. And of course, for third, fourth, we have Bad and we have Unner, who did very well, and congratulations to all the players that have made it this far, and everybody who has participated. Thank you very much. But while we have Akamaru here, let's talk a little bit about something that's going to be very relevant to him coming up. And again, it's going to be the World Grand Prix, so
Yes.
get a little bit of a recap on that. It's obviously a very exciting thing, and we want to make sure that we're promoting it as much as we can. December 23rd to the 24th in Japan. And that's going to be 3 invites for Europe, North America, Korea, and Taiwan. And then 12 invites for Japan, making a total of 24 players, but 120,000 US dollars here. Akamaru, how has Starforged Legends been going for you? Are you feeling confident about the Contenders Cup? Are you feeling confident about going to the World Grand Prix?
Not necessarily confident, just excited. I just want to play as fast as I can. I wish Contenders Cup was this weekend. But obviously we can't do that. We need to set up the competitors first. But what better Christmas present can you get, right, than going to the World Grand Prix and having a chance to play against the best players of Shadowverse? It's 2 dreams and a Christmas Eve, and it's just magical.
Yeah.
So, very excited for it.
Yeah. What? Oh my God! Can you imagine the winner of that tournament? If
Yeah.
they time it with midnight, they hand them the check right there. What
Christmas?
Is that the plan?
That's it.
Side games,
That's
is that
the
the
dream.
plan? Is that the plan?
I can imagine Games actually getting some cosplay of Santa Claus and delivering it. I think it would
No,
be
no, no,
their
no, no.
capability.
Carrot Santa Claus.
Oh
Carrot
no!
Santa
Please, no! Not the carrot. I already had to fight the carrot once.
I saw that.
It
I
was-
saw that. That was pretty intense.
Dangerous. Not recommended. Would not recommend you do that. But if you guys are excited about the World Grand Prix and about everything Starforged Legends Shadowverse Open as well, as this season of competition for North America and EU, find more information at shadowverse.nge.io and also sign up to participate. There's still 2 more weeks of qualifiers for EU and 3 more weeks of qualifiers for North America. The tournament for North America is tomorrow. You can still sign up now, so if you want to get in on the action, make sure you take the opportunity, because these 3 qualifiers, after that we have to do the Contenders Cup, so that's the cutoff time. So make sure, if you want a chance to go to Tokyo, that you sign up and you get ready to fly out and play against some of the best Shadowverse players in the world. So
But first, you got to get through people like Akamaru Red over here
Look
in
at
order
him.
to get there.
look at this guy. Take a moment and look at this man. He's a thinking man. Oh my God, he's got the pose too. He's camera ready.
We timed that
That's something.
perfectly.
We didn't get a Prime Dragon Keeper, but I'm just gonna say thank you, Games, for making a card to me, because I think Games saw my finger pistols and they were like, let's make a card for Akamaru Red. So bang, bang.
Oh,
Perfect.
that's right. That's your killing blow. That's your staple. You should, before the broadcast, we were talking about wrestling moves and whatnot. You should name your finger guns like a particular move set. That's their finishing move.
It's the bang bang.
That's the bang
Or
bang. That's
Take
it.
care to touch, I guess.
Akamaru Red with a bang bang. So thank you so much for taking the time, joining us, giving us some of your professional insight onto the finals
Thank
of the tournament. We'd love to have you back on more and more and get to see more of you. But of course, as the season goes on, we're going to see you compete and hopefully do really, really well in the competition. We'll always be rooting for Akamaru Red because you're such a lovable guy, but the competition is going to be tough, as we see from today's qualifier. So, With that, it comes to the end of the show. A big thanks to Aya Senpai for casting, as he is not here with us right at this moment, but always appreciate him on the show and look forward to more casting with him. And thank you to Exodium and thank you to Akamaru Red for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching and tuning in for the first week. Tomorrow is going to be North America, and next week more qualifiers for both regions. So make sure you stay up to date and stay tuned. We will see you next time.